Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei was replaced and betrayed for Naruto, and everyone faces its consequences part 1. Before we start, please go support DavidArmandoLopezRey for writing that awesome fanfic. Now let's begin. This is the translated version I made. There will be some wrong he or she calling here because it's translated, so let me clear this. Issei is a male in this story. Summary. Rias narrates. Since we changed Issei for that shitty blonde, our world is in the brink of destruction by the ex-gods who have arrived. My future son that I had with Issei despises and hates me, now he has a bad image for him and his younger brothers, our reputation and achievement went to hell. The worst of all is that Naruto left us to our fate for his own life and even his own world that let him die. Now me and some of us will go to the island where someone is to see if they can be saved, just for one last time and die in peace. Clarification. See the aftermath of post-Naruverse as the god has ruined 2 worlds and possibly a third when the ex-gods went to conquer those worlds. The protagonist of that story is Rias from DxD, seeing how she is losing everyone because she has chosen to change Issei for someone who was imposed by the god. The same with Tsunade Hanabi in the blonde dimension, as he prefers to let the dimension where the hero became die where he became Hagek. Several survivors of the elemental nations flee to DxD as their new home, and finally it is Hinata who will also have a very important role and is Issei's partner who also lives on the island. The leaders, Dragon Gods, DxD group and the rest of the ninja world will go look for Issei to help him defeat the X, but he will leave certain conditions for his help. There will be character death due to the level of guilt and regret that torments him in the future. Issei's children from the alternate universe also make a special appearance, and like that they also renounce their mother's surname, causing more pain to Issei's former harem. There will be 1 or 2 alternative endings. Prologue. David. Before starting the prologue, I'm going to say, whatever happens, it's not a hatred of the canon Naruto character, but of the person who makes Naruto look all-powerful above another character who can humiliate Rubio in the situation where he defeats David. If you are going to apply like the whining progressives, don't touch your saintly blonde, go read another abandoned or betrayed Naruto fanfic, or try to report why not accept the harsh truth that is doing great damage to the character and the entire saga like that manga and anime. David. That is not an attack on the person who is writing Naruverse fanfic, but it is seeing the true real damage due to the level of fanaticism, and that also applies to any shonen verse. Also there will be no mentions of that person, because I do not want any problems, and if you are this person who was offended, once again said it is not an attack, but it will be a raw and real criticism. David. Without anything to say, let's start with that sad story between 3 protagonists. And some things very far from all control Omegaverse. There were 3 people who were in a special room where they were sitting separately out of respect. The first was a man with short black hair, with a stoic and cold look. He had a suit of the same color and had a cigar in his mouth. He was David, or also known as Dowler. On another armchair sat 2 people, a tall, pale-skinned man who had deep wrinkles and a strong jaw in his old age. He had light brown, spiky, shoulder-length hair with a braided lock of hair reaching down to his chin and hanging in front of his left ear, and he also sported a goatee, which was short in his youth and then grew shorter to his waist in his old age. He wore a full-body white kimono with a pattern of 6 black magatama around a high collar, beneath which he wore a necklace that was also composed of 6 black magatama. On the back of his kimono was a larger black Rinnegan mark with a pattern of 9 magatama arranged in 3 rows of 3 underneath. He was Hagoromo Otsutsuki, or also known as Rakuto Senin. Standing next to old Rakuto, he was the same old image, but younger. He had short, spiky brown hair, 2 locks of which were wrapped in bandages that framed either side of his face similar to his brother Indra. He possessed severe facial features in later years. He had a more pronounced jaw and a short goatee similar to his father's. He wore what appeared to be a white forehead protector, and later, bandages around his forehead. He wore a light-colored kimono with magatama decorated around the neck, and the kimono was held closed by a dark-colored sash, and underneath, he wore a black full-body suit. He was Asura Otsutsuki, youngest son of Hagoromo. The 3 men were spying on what was happening in the dimensional cinema, where the god had summoned 2 universes such as Naruto and DxD. The sage of the 6 paths did not like at all the presence of the god who was watching the screen, since his hypocrisy was noticeable. The airs of moral superiority of others, and worst of all, they did not like that look was directed at a certain person who looked at him with hatred and contempt. Well, Dowler had a serious look and had finished his cigarette, since he knew what was going to happen next, and then everyone, those kinds of gods are pure cocksucker of their favorite character, who are divine beings inside and outside of their works, and everyone else who has to be bowed before or else would pay for the torture. The black-haired man knew very perfectly that those people were very sick because of his favorite character, not because of that. He had heard several reports that each dimension suffering sudden change between the worlds where they were imposed by the whim of God and destroying the balance of power between different worlds. But that was what suffered the most was the universe of DxD, and Issei was always the punching bag of the god and blonde ninja, because according to how the ideology of Poseidon of those people made him very angry that Issei had that potential and had a great harem. And that bothered them a lot. He had more interesting feats than his Naruto, goals and dreams that were different, however for them, he doesn't even understand investigating about Issei. He always stays in his mind to close and activate the interrupt that had to destroy, discredit and deform his personality, because according to him, you don't deserve to have this prominence. This is how true hell began for the brown-haired boy in dimensional cinema. The first universe that showed the god over the blonde was Kirito from Sao, where he showed that virtual alternative world of the blonde, as he had a good handling of both swords with the bosses. Obviously the universe where the blonde comes from began to praise him, and several of the other villages got wet, even Kiba and Zenobia were excited before such a demonstration of Naruto. However, the god had manipulated a certain person. He had manipulated Issei and Boruto in an extreme way, making them despicable, cringing, arrogant, weak and so on to the point where their own families and friends got fed up and began to distance themselves, including Hinata, who he made a stalker and an embarrassment, which did not surprise him much when Hiashi expelled her so quickly, gave her the caged bird seal, and let Hanabi go for Naruto. Why? Because the god hated the former Hyuga heiress because she was shy, she wasn't good in combat, and she was also responsible for her blonde messiah, being the father of that abortion like Boruto and Himawari, for having ruined his appointment as Hokage, and putting another dozen couples even more forced out of hatred for this first canon couple, and because YOLO, all for the sake of Narugod. Despite the hypocrisy. In one of the god's punishments, Boruto lost one of his eyes at Naruto's hands with a kunai, causing Hogage's former son to scream in pain and making everyone laugh at his misery. That made Hagoromo and Asura very sick. They had trusted Naruto, but now they no longer recognized him because he was being infected by the influence of God, which had just begun. The other universe that showed was Ninja Assassin, where the blonde had finished off the clan where he had grown up, and with a thirst for revenge for having killed his beloved who wanted to leave the clan. However, Dower knew that this god was using the old reliable but different world that made all the women cried for the blonde, for the suffering he was subjected to as a heartless weapon. Of course, to add fuel to the fire, that Tsumair became Naruto's little whore and Kawaki lamented for his adoptive father. And everyone else cringed that at the end of all this, his entire universe would die and everyone would be worth the same to them. They would die and receive a bullet or maybe 1,000 for Naruto. But an entire world where there are thousands and tens of thousands were worth 3 hectares of pure sausage, since they only cared about Narugod sausage, and they were boiling over Boris because he complained about not having a father's love, because the very father was leaving as Hokage, and he didn't even go to his children's birthdays. But of course, being Narugod, everything is forgiven without further ado. Dower couldn't intervene because it was the norm of a megaverse. Although he was filled with pure rage, the Sage of Six Paths was slowly becoming disappointed in Uzumaki, and while Asura was thinking that they would go after stripping away all the power he had given during the ninja war. Thus showing a different world where Blonde was the protagonist and giving powers that Naruto does not deserve. Naruto was convincing himself that he was the savior of the world and other vomitous shit. However, Issei had been left alone and no one wanted him. They saw him as someone worthless. He was no longer a pillar of the factions, stripped of the Haidu surname by his own father. His own perverted friend preferred this with the blonde. The commitment to his harem was annulled and transferred to Naruto, and worst of all, Drake abandoned him for the blonde, and they took away Great Red's flesh and Office's power, since he was not worthy of having his power, and Naruto deserved it better as well as the pawn pieces. Then the god showed a rap to show all of Rubio's achievements, and thus saying goodbye to everyone to return to his world. When the broadcast ended, the room was in its uncomfortable silence, until the black-haired man spoke. "That's going to be a fucking disaster," said Dower with annoyance. "I agree with you, Dower Dono, these humans are damn ungrateful," said Asura. "Son, I think you're right, however I regret giving my power to Naruto," said the old sage of the Six Paths. "Hagoromo," said the black-haired man. "Forks," said the aforementioned. "I want him to go to the X world, more in the Chisagami temple, so he knows about his possible appearance in the DxD world," said Dower seriously. "Understood. Dower Dono," said the old man. "What are you going to do now?" Dower Dono, Asura asked. "For now, I'll go with the judge's squad to bring this son of a bitch to you before another world falls victim to God," Dower responded while showing the RWBY universe as his target. "You can go to your original world to judge Uzumaki," he said to father and sons. Also, Issei is banished from the facts, which makes him completely human. In a way, he will survive without help from the leaders. He's right, even though he was manipulated by the god, he has the potential to do it without needing that dragon that he had sealed. "I have great faith that that boy will become stronger," said Hagoromo. He is not alone, but also ex-Hyuga will go with his children to heal this hurt heart among the gods, since I have a hunch that he will fall in love in the future," said Asura. "Well, now it's time to get to work," said Dower, getting up from the chair and followed by father and son. But the three left the special room. The XD world. 6 months after Dimensional Cinema. You could see the brown-haired boy along with the dark blue-haired boy and his children, who were aboard a boat that Issei had bought some time ago, since he had planned to use it when he was married, but now it will no longer be possible, because his ex-harem was better off with the blonde Uzumaki. Since then, when he returned to his world after the invocation of God, the brown-haired boy had offered Hinata, Boruto and Himawari to live in an apartment so that she did not feel alone. The former Hyuga Uzumaki agreed to live with Issei, while Issei returned to the Cow Academy to finish the last semester of high school and graduate. However, when he entered, it was not going to be so easy. Since the students would come to look for him to make fun of him and other things, but that did not fall into the provocations of the bullies, but from them he had released a sensitive subject for him. There the brown-haired boy lunged at his bullies where he fucked up everyone. But that was seen by a teacher who took him to the student council where him as he was humiliated in the Dimensional Cinema, and he was not as much of a man as his Naruto. That made him very angry, who compared him to him. However, Saji stood in the way of a possible problem and asked Issei not to get into trouble. The brown-haired boy calmed down a bit since he knew that former pawn Citri also suffered from Uzumaki's situation. This was the semester of former Hyuga, who had to endure the humiliations of all the students and teachers, although he had few friends who were influenced by the blonde and godlike Ika, who had ended a relationship with the church trio, and Saji, who had found out that Momo and Rukuro went with Naruto. The brown-haired boy helped his former pawn partner to get out of depression. Since then their friendship was strengthened. In addition, Issei and Hinata were slowly falling in love since he saw the dark blue-haired girl crying on the floor, remembering how his ex-younger sister was with her ex-husband living together as if nothing had happened. That hurt him a lot. The brown-haired boy couldn't help but go to console her to undo all that pain. Issei also got along better with the younger blonde who went to places like the video game center and with Himawari to the amusement park where one time she accidentally called him dad. Issei was surprised to be called that since he was young. Although an adult, he caressed his future daughter's head. Issei had some run-ins with Naruto and his former harem where they didn't talk or anything, since he didn't care about anything anymore. That love for her was dying little by little. However, for the re-deed she still loved Issei, but she never did anything for him, and there was nothing left but to pass by while he went with Himawari to go to the zoo. That hurt her a lot. Graduation month had arrived, where everyone received their diplomas from the Cow Academy. Issei left the academy so as not to be seen by the leaders and former parents. He had gone to his apartment where he had everything prepared to leave. Cow, Hinata, and her children also wanted to go with him, since she did not want to be with Naruto in the city. Then 4 of them went to Cow Bay, where they got on the brown-haired boy's boat. When he was about to get inside the boat, suddenly Rias had arrived to try to talk to Issei. "Ice, I want." But the brown-haired boy is interrupted. "We have nothing to talk about, Gremory has already made its decision, and now let me be free," said Issei coldly. That had hurt the re-deed a lot. She wanted to go further, however Issei got inside the boat. The brown-haired boy with his key activated the engines to slowly move away from Cow Bay. Rias could not do anything, and only watched as the boat went towards the sea, and a stranger, then behind Rias the others arrived along with Naruto. "Rias, what are you doing here?" Akeno asked. "Nothing, I just wanted to see the ocean," the re-deed replied to turn him around. "I see, we scared each other, it made me worried," said Naruto. "Well, we better go to the Hyuga residence for the graduation party," said Ross to the others who listened to the former Valkyrie to leave the bay. Rias took one last look at where the boat had gone as she shed a few treacherous tears. "I'm sorry," she said in a low tone as she walked towards her harem sister and her fiancé, so as not to ruin the celebration. Chapter 1. 2 years after Issei's departure. Rias narrates. 2 years have passed since the god had summoned us in the Dimensional Cinema to learn about Naruto's adventure. I feel remorse for not having helped his ex-fiancée, Ice, who was a victim of the god's manipulation, and as a result I failed as king, for not having intervened before the torture that was being each presentation of the universe where the Uzumaki was the protagonist. From my point of view, it was not a big deal to make him like a saint or the great messiah. But the others in my point did not think the same, since the leaders of each faction had interest in Naruto, and even my family, who was already thinking that he could be a better fiancé than Ice. I wanted to protest before, but I had no voice or vote between my father and older brother. My engagement was completely annulled, but not officially when we returned to our world. While the others were doing better with Naruto and left Ice aside since now he was again alone with Blond's ex-family in the most remote place in the cinema. Now Naruto was the new pillar of both dimensions. When the last one was shown a rap and a celebration, the god says goodbye to us all and again transports us to where he was going to make the preparations for the war against the alliance of the underworld gods commanded by Hades and his allies. I said nothing when he arrived and went to his room where we used to sleep. He put all his things away and left the Haidu residence. He wanted to go to comfort him, but he was stopped by Naruto not to do so, and also you do not deserve anything to comfort a perverted failure. That made me angry because of the comment, and yet I turned around to see the others who agreed with the blonde Uzumaki. I was incredulous that each one of them had turned off the love for Issei, and who helped almost all of them with their emotional problems such as Asia, Akeno, Kaneko and Kuroka, Zenobia, Irina and Roswas. She was being cursed. I had no choice but to stay in the residence. After Ice was no longer a Hyauju and banished from the factions for a few months, I, Akeno, Tsubaki and Sona had entered the university to make up for lost time, and also with Seraphol, Gabriel and Penemu with Naruto entered Kao University, since according to the god, he gave genius level intelligence to Blonde so he would have no problem. When Naruto was introduced on his first day of school, the entire female population and some teachers fell like flies before Naruto's charisma. Then I along with the others had lunch. Suddenly a notification came out that was happening at the Kao Academy. I opened the notification which was a video where I was being humiliated by the bullies, and then as he exploded in anger he beat everyone mercilessly to the group. Then the new student council arrived to stop the circus. I did not know how it was going to express what I saw, however the three brunettes talked to each other, so that I heard well. It seems that she circa and apostrophe T get over her breakup. Commented the queen of Sona with thanks. True, I think I'll talk to the director to expel him said Sona, disgusted to talk about Ice. I think we did the right thing by leaving that new pervert for nothing because of Naruto-kun said Akeno with disgust. I wasn't serious, Akeno and you too, Sona I said shocked. Rias, you have to let this nobody scare you said the semi-fallen seriously. I agree with Akeno, since she is her friend, forget about this pervert. Said the younger Citri coldly. I was N apostrophe T the one to say that, you did that to her pawn too. The Redid replied. Sona-sama did it for the good of the class said Tsubaki, but she was interrupted by me. For the sake of the Citri clan. Don't say that shit. I knew Saji was in love with you, but why did you humiliate yourself and compare him to Naruto who is not his level? I said angrily to Queen Citri who was upset that I was attacking her blonde boyfriend. She wanted to teach him a lesson, but she was stopped by Sona. There is no need, Tsubaki, to waste your time attacking said Sona. But Sona-sama, she needs to be re-educated, said the black-haired girl with glasses. You're right about that, Rias, if your former pawn wants to continue his studies. Sona said maliciously. I didn't know what the look was that Sona and Tsubaki were giving me while Akeno didn't care what was going to happen, then they threw me to the ground. Why are you looking at me like that, Sona I said fearfully. Well, you see, dear friend, I always secretly hated you for having the red dragon in your ranks that brought prestige and fame to your clan, and I had a pawn with an incomplete dragon king. You don't know that I had to envy you for having that fame he paused, while giving her a smile. Now with the arrival of Naruto-kun, I couldn't resist that he was mine or that he was part of his harem, then, again I got angry that you were his fiancé. That's not going to stay like that she said in yandier tones. So Tsubaki had removed my blouse from Ella and only had her black bra on before Sona's gaze, who was approaching my breasts from Ella, while her queen's other hand from Ella went towards my crotch with intentions. Are you willing to be my slave so that scum can finish his school year? He asked me bluntly. I didn't know what I was responding to before Sona's proposal. In my demon pride I told myself not to do it, that it wasn't worth it, but a part of my heart still loved Ice. If Ice could be humiliated and tortured in that dimensional movie theater, I was also willing to pay the same amount of money with her. It was the only way to pay back the favor. I looked into Sona and Tsubaki's eyes so they could hear my answer. Yes, I'm willing to do it I answered to my friend and the queen who smiled. Oh, she is determined to protect the exile, okay it will be an agreement between us, she is not allowed to reveal our secret to anyone said Sona. Your first task as my little whore is to not bring me any panties for the rest of the week, or are you afraid to do so, she said coldly and somewhat mockingly at the end. Both girls let go of me and then got up to look at each other to see if I was going to do Sona's request. I also got up from the ground, but I put myself at an angle so as not to be seen by the other boys on campus. I was nervous and embarrassed that I was about to take off my underwear in a public place, but I had made my oath that Issei would finish his last semester without a problem. I put my hands under my skirt taking my panties, but Sona, Tsubaki and Akeno were watching me attentively to see if I was going to take off my panties. I thought it was the beginning of my punishment, so I slowly lowered my underwear until it reached my ankles and removed it without problem, leaving it on the floor. Sona saw me with a satisfied smile and indicated to her queen to lift my garment. She accepted the order and went a few centimeters from my person, took my panties and they did not resist, so they slapped my bare butt and I let out an erotic moan. Sona's queen was bisexual, which was not strange. She does not love my knight, and now she passionately loved Naruto, who was her true man in front of Tsubaki. Tsubaki was enjoying the feeling as she had hit my butt, so that she returns with Sona. Suddenly lunchtime was over, so we all returned to our classrooms. I was feeling cold without my panties, but I had to toughen my punishment. Several hours later we went to the occult club to continue the clan contracts, and Sona with her outcast also did yours, although Sona went to talk to the director to avoid Issei's expulsion. I was relieved for now that he could finish his school years away from the supernatural. When everyone went to make their contracts, a magic circle was coming out my brother and his queen to talk to Naruto for his grand presentation in front of the underworld and other allied factions after graduation in April. I was there listening to everyone as Naruto's fiancé. And so the months passed. The others had found out about Sona's deal to avoid Issei's expulsion. Each of them began to make fun of me, mainly that I was Asia, and Arena, who commented on how it was possible that the great Rias Gremory had come down to save the pervert. I was getting upset by them, who had more love for Issei, but had shown that she was more interested in Naruto. Arena was her childhood friend. She was ungrateful, who did everything possible to save her father's life during the invasion of heaven with the evil dragons of Risavum, as it was what she paid for. She went to Naruto's side, because according to her, he is more chivalrous than her former childhood friend. I wanted to answer, but I was interrupted by that blonde shit who did not want any fighting. Then he proceeded to take my hand to try to apologize to that bitch calling herself Angel. She growls in annoyance. Then my own tower slapped me, so that I would not disrespect her father of her kittens. Between all of them tied me up to be raped by Naruto by force. I tried to beg him not to do it. But they turned a deaf ear that tore my clothes, and I screamed that I was being raped by someone I didn't love. My eyes were full of tears that my first time was taken away the hard way by that Uzumaki, since according to what the god wanted was a powerful offspring, that the bastard of his ex-wife Hinata. So a dimensional breach comes out, more women from the world of blonde shit to start the orgy that lasted until the next day. When the sun came up I was lifeless and my eyes on the floor, while the rest in bed. Inside I was regretting and asking Ice to save me, but that was not going to happen. When the others woke up to continue the routine going to the university, and we left the Haidu residence together with my harem sister and Naruto, when you were passing over the bridge, and above was Ice, who was completely changed, was no longer this cheerful boy, and who motivated others, and now was someone different who was a straight with a cold look. When he raised his gaze towards me together with the others, he gave me an expression of disgust that he didn't want to see us all with Naruto. That look hurt me, since according to what a professor from my faculty has said, that Ice has a job to support him and Naruto's ex-family, who now lived in an apartment on the other side of the city. The job where Ice worked was being a DJ at a party. I was surprised that my ex-fiancé was good at music. I thought he was a pervert with a dream of being a harem king, but I was more than wrong, since I was the one who didn't know him well. On one occasion, I and several of my classmates made a private party where he was a DJ called Witchblade, but he has a wrestler mask to cover his face. Then I was impressed that he had a gift with the music that he played at the party, where my college classmates cheered him on his DJ name. I wanted to come over to talk but was stopped by Naruto to leave the party to go hunt a renegade demon who is with that human scum who would not deserve to be in front of a great Uzumaki, so I lost the opportunity to talk to him when I saw the look of that happiness that he had recovered. The second time was where we saw him at the amusement park, where he was accompanied by Boruto and Himawari, as if it were a family day. Then Naruto and the others made fun of him when we crossed glances again. Little Himawari trembled with fear when she remembered the dimensional cinema torture by her ex-father. Boruto wanted to fight him, but Ice calms him down, saying that it is not worth it. Spanish. Pity to waste his anger, and the ex-Uzumaki looks at my ex, who accepts him in a bad way, although in my eyes, it was a great relationship between father and children, but the blonde shit mocks his ex-son, who didn't have the courage to beat me up. That is why it was a dishonor as a son. Even Kawaki was a better stepson. Also participated in the mockery. Then Himawari was crying, but Ice carries ex-Hyuga to calm down. When she saw his smile she calmed down. Then he faces Naruto, saying, "How dare you talk like that to your own?" But Naruto was affected in nothing, and but counterattack Ice, a useless pervert and a family of stalkers that do not deserve to exist. Ice was still listening to all the shit that you have removed everyone and the rest. Ice interrupts him that he is fed up with hearing the blonde shitty ego, that he has to go home because what to do. Ice and his ex-son leave the place to go to his car. After that meeting they use it as a topic of conversation at the Hyuga residence, where his ex-father laughed at the misfortune of his own blood. I wanted to give a punch to that old woman disguised as a mother. Then the leaders and the others appear for the presentation of Naruto. Ice's series was changed by the name of Naruto, and even bought the press to speak well of him and speak badly of Ice before the presentation. Also, I was going to take advantage of announcing my engagement to Naruto, however I knew that the old man of advice would not accept this new change, but the patriarchal Bale was going to use his power to speed up his approval of my new marriage request, and the others, I was tied to such a dark future. I went to the roof of the residence that I began to cry and secretly took a photo where I and he were kissing during my breaking of my engagement with Razor. So he had the tense months for Naruto's big presentation. Naruto went to his world to execute his former rival friend Sasuke, to stay with Sakura and Sarada who brought him to the residence. Also Tsunade became younger, like 30 years old, to return to be the 5th Hokage of the village, and the other side Ice was finishing his work as a DJ, because he was going to go somewhere else to do another project with his fiancée Hinata, who I saw on a date together. Also I took advantage of the secrets that I sent money in the name of Witchblade, who deserved her profit for her old series, as a way to earn her forgiveness someday, until spring came, and the graduation of the 3rd years of the Cow Academy, everyone went with the leaders to see the girls and the others. When the graduation ceremony ended, I saw in the distance Ice and Hinata with their children leave quickly. I turned to my mother that I will go to the club, that I forgot something before the celebration of my harem sister. She told me not to go, it will take too long, so leaving the building when I saw the 4 of them in their car heading in an unknown direction, and I took a taxi. I told the driver to chase this car, and the driver acknowledged my request that he went after Ice's car. He will follow it until he reaches the city bay where the boats were. I got off a few blocks away and paid the taxi and continued running to get to him. While I was down the steps, I saw him putting Hinata and his children on the boat that he had bought a long time ago for our honeymoon. When I get there on time. Ice, I want. But the brown-haired boy is interrupted. We have nothing to talk about, Gremory has already made its decision, and now let me be free. Said Issei coldly. That hurt me deep down. I wanted to go further, however Issei got inside the boat. The brown-haired boy with his key activated the engines to slowly move away from Cow Bay. I couldn't do anything, and just watched as the boat went towards the sea, and a stranger, then behind me the others arrived along with Naruto. Rias, what are you doing here? Akeno asked. Nothing, I just wanted to see the ocean, I answered to turn him around. I see, we scared each other, it made me worried. Said Naruto. Well, we better go to the Haidu residence for the graduation party, said Ross to the others who listened to the former Valkyrie to leave the bay. I took one last look at where the boat had gone as I shed a few treacherous tears. I'm sorry, I said in a low tone, to go to my harem sister and my fiancé, so as not to ruin the celebration. We left the bay to go to the Haidu residence, where Ice's ex-mother made a big banquet for everyone. Everyone was eating and enjoying the party that lasted about 4 hours. After finishing the graduation celebration, we went to the underworld to make the presentation of the new pillar of the factions. The square of the old city of Lucifer was full for the preparation. There were the children to see their hero. The Op-Eye Dragon was very excited to see those children who will feel betrayed when he is the true face of the mass. My brother takes the microphone to make his presentation typical, and the reason why everyone was gathered, the population, whether of supreme, high, middle and low class, was very attentive that he was going to say that the hero of the factions was exiled by their decision. The unexpected reactions among the population and those who were watching, but he continued that he was no longer useful and now had a new red emperor and pillar of the factions who was about to make a direction where to make his entrance. Naruto welcomed everyone. The children and fans of Op-Eye were confused what was happening. One of the children who have not seen the rating games against my cousin shouted to the Mayu, "Where are you, Op-Eye Dragon?" The blonde takes the microphone to answer the boy who was with his mothers. This Op-Eye Dragon was nothing more than a perverted failure. The other children did not agree with Naruto, beginning to shout that he wanted to see the true hero of childhood. And so on. The Mayu speak among themselves to summon the guards if things got out of control. Naruto tried to give his same speech that he used in his dimension and history, but what happened after the children and fans of Op-Eye Dragon began to boo Naruto and the leaders, who were very nervous. Then they began to throw things and stones at Naruto, releasing the scandal among the people who were gathered. Several fans and people breaking the security to go face Naruto. Then the Mayu guard arrived trying to give order to everyone, but it went to shit. More people went on top of the guard. The leaders and the DXD group were escorted to Lucifer Castle to be protected. It was just the beginning of our karma in the following years and revelations. Chapter 2. Narrator's POV. 3 years after Issei's departure. After Naruto's disastrous introduction to the underworld, the image of the leaders was completely affected, as the Council of Elders had a new change, thanks to the arrival of the survivors of the Sargatana's clan, who overthrew the Bale power of the council, their first actions being that the 4 Mayu lost 50% of political power. Zekrom Bale did not agree with the new council, so he asked Uzumaki to ambush and kill the new leader of the Sargatana's clan. Naruto agreed with Zekrom, since he did not like the new counselor at all, and because he was going to ask for results in the war against the infernal alliance of the god Hades. The blonde was only going to be accountable to the leaders. Not to those old mummy who looked like Danzo and the other extinct civil council of Konoha. Naruto had made a team formed with several members of the DXD. It is known that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, such is the case of Naruto Uzumaki. During those years the blonde did not waste time mastering without any problem all the Red Emperor armor, combined with his power of Six-Path Sage or the Kurama mode in the invasion of the rest of the Otsutsuki clan in the village of Konoha. The group to do the mission was Kiba, Gasper, Volley, Biku, Arthur, Dulio, Cao Cao, George and Jean, who was being commanded by Naruto as the leader of the mission. The group was going to the grounds of the new council leader and coincidentally met the Falbium entourage, who also had the same intentions of ambushing Hanzo Sargatanas. But was an extra demon who no longer had experience in battle for a long time after the war of the three factions. However, Naruto and the others were underestimating the new council leader and was going to learn it the hard way. When Mao Falbium's entourage went to attack head-on where according to what was said there was no careful guardian, he had entrusted them to the entrance. Serious mistake. Since they had activated the most advanced security system of the Sargatanas clan, since they manufactured security drones to subdue any threat to them, regardless of whether it was gods or the same mass, a couple of doors where a group of drones was coming out towards Mao Falbium's team. The Mao queen saw that she was watching a group of drones that was coming towards them and asks her to stop. The rest agree with the woman's order. The drone leader scans all of Mao Asmodeus' servants and asks why he came to the Sargatanas territory. The woman responds that she does not have to say anything to some piles of scrap that are going to be destroyed now because they are a threat to the alliance. The drone leader is processing the Falbium queen's response. The other members of Falbium were attentive to any attack, then the drone's eyes changed to attack. One of the drone weapons with a magic circle of the clan aimed at the Mao queen who fired a shot at close range towards the woman's chest where the queen piece was and the woman fell dead to the ground. Thus begins the battle between the security drones versus Falbium's entourage at the entrance. While Naruto's group were also discovered by the security robots that were attacking them, Naruto orders the three members of the hero faction and Sky Joker to cover him while they go do the job, thus starting another battle in the halls of the Sargatanas mansion. The six went to Hanzo's office to make their assassination. When he was about to reach the office door, he did not expect that Hanzo himself expected him. Naruto tells the old man that you have saved the job and search. The old man asks the Uzumaki, what are you doing in his mansion? Don't you know it is illegal to enter someone else's house? But the blonde does not respond and activates the balance breaker that was to attack without any plan towards Hanzo. The old man was not afraid of being attacked, on the contrary, it was time to put Uzumaki in his place. Naruto with his extended fist was going to hit the face of the council president, but old Sargatanas motionless waited for the blonde's blow. When he was about to reach him, suddenly Hanzo's eyes had a flash and then returned to normal. Uzumaki's fist was close to him. But for a strange reason it was changed from the course that was directed to the ground, making a crater in the ground, while old Sargatanas had no scratches. The other members swung at Hanzo. Hanzo took out his war axe that he had not used since the faction war, and now he would use it to get rid of the intruders who interrupted his mansion. The battle began. First Arthur and Kiba with their swords that attacked from different sides. Volley and Dulio activated their balance breaker, and finally Biku with his staff that he used as a long-range weapon against Hanzo. The old man studies his opponent already has the form of defeated, but needed to know if he was powerful to face him. Both blonde approached where Hanzo was to make an X cut. Hanzo reacts in time, blocked the swords of Kiba and Arthur with a part of the axe. The old Sargatanas makes him retreat, both swordsmen back with force that fall to the ground. Then come the descendant Lucifer and Joker of Michael with a magic attack against him. Hanzo activates his eyes lino down that absorbed the attacks of Volley and Dulio as if nothing. It was Biku's turn to attack, to extend his west traveling staff to hit a blind spot of the council president. But he notices an attack towards him and uses dark power to disappear and reappear behind the descendant of the Monkey King, who uses his free hand to grab his head without him realizing that he was behind him. At one point he throws him towards the wall where he crashes and knocks him out. Then the blonde ninja has his Ransugan with increased boost that was going to attack on his back. Hanzo uses the lower part of the axes that hits Naruto's armor hard, causing Ransugan to fall to the ground, and then Hanzo disappears to avoid the explosion. The blonde's attack exploded in front of him that was thrown several meters from the corridors. Hanzo reappears towards where Volley and Dulio were, who were ready to fight hand to hand against the old Sargatanas. The platinum-haired man does a series of blows towards Hanzo that deflects all the blows, and followed by Dulio, throws an air disc towards the old man to do greater damage. But again use lino down to cancel the air disc, however it was a distraction. Volley rises up to kick him. Hanzo reacts in time that uses his arm to grab the platinum-haired man's leg that makes him crash into the ground, creating a crater, causing all the armor is destroyed by stardom, causing Volley to spit blood and fall unconscious. Dulio creates a sacred spear of light that throws him towards Hanzo. Hanzo uses his axe to destroy Dulio's spear. Kiba with two-handed swords does the same movement again, attacking the left side of the man. The old man uses his axe to defend against the Gremory Knight's attack, blocking the two swords with the pressure of his weapons, making Kiba's swords break as if they were paper. Then uses his axe handle to hit him in the stomach, and Kiba falls to his knees from the blow of his weapons. The blonde gets up and looks at him to see that the axe blades were going to decapitate him, but was interrupted by Naruto using Ascalon to block Hanzo's weapons. The blonde ninja tells Kiba that it is better to retreat, at this rate he will end up dying. The new best friend tied Naruto's order, tells the others to regroup and make a magic circle to leave the mansion. Those who were standing heard what Kiba said. Much to their regret, they did cases Naruto's order. Dulio receives a magic circle from Cao Cao that Jean is dead. He and George need reinforcement to help him get out. Dulio used his wings to go help his partner who was in trouble, but Hanzo was not going to allow him to leave. He pushes Naruto aside with his axes, then uses the peak above the arm used as a spear to throw him with force and speed. The blonde Gremory yells in desperation to Dulio that he should get away from there. It was too late, all the axe blades had pierced Michael's Joker's body, who fell to the ground dead. Everyone else was in shock at Dulio's death. Naruto activates Kurama mode with the armor to hit Hanzo with his right hook. The aforementioned again dodges the blonde's blow, and at the same instant the old Sargatanas takes Naruto's arm, breaking it without any effort. Naruto screams in pain because his arm deactivates his Kurama mode and the armor. Kiba takes volley on his shoulder, and Arthur approaches his leader to get out of there. Kiba creates a magic circle fleeing the place, leaving their fate to Biku, Cao Cao and George. Hours after the battle, inside and outside the Sargatana's mansion, Falbium's entourage were brutally massacred without mercy. On the other hand, Hanzo finds in his office the survivors Cao Cao, George and Biku in front of him. The president was not at all happy about the ambush towards his mansion, and against him, Hanzo asks his servant to notify the other members of the council that Falbium Asmodeus and also that Zekrom Bale be arrested for conspiracy and attempted murder. The servant obeyed the order of his lord and left the mansion. Days after attempted ambush and assassination, all members of the council burst into anger against Zekrom Bale and Mayu Asmodeus. They all made a unanimous vote that Falbium is no longer Mayu Asmodeus, and the Bale clan also suffered the punishment for conspiracy. His capture was ordered for those involved. The news was expansive throughout the underworld by Hanzo, who made it public in a press conference in his mansion that caused repercussions among those affected. The Glaciolabolas and Bale clan, losing all their business alliances due to the news. In addition, the new heiress of the Glaciolabolas clan, Ryuka, will have a lot of pressure about that, and also among the main elders of the clan, declares Falbium as a traitor against the underworld. His name will be erased, will never be mentioned, making him unmentionable to the clan. The same goes for the Bale clan. Saraerg's father was extremely upset by the actions of his clan founder. Lord Bale had to find a way to clean up the image of the clan since the arrival of Naruto to the underworld by his nephew Mayu Lucifer about giving support to blonde Uzumaki, then the fiasco of the presentation he was regretting. Several sponsors of his son Saraerg withdrew their support to be the next Mayu, and now with the news ends all possibility of becoming Mayu. Saraerg was devastated by the news that made his greatest dream no longer come true. The Bale went to confront cousin Circiches, who did know about that. When he arrived at the Gremory mansion that was all prepared for the engagement party of the girls and leaders with Naruto, Saraerg went to the room where his relatives, his servants, Naruto and his fiancée were planning the party. The black-haired man saw Naruto sitting talking to Circiches about making an assault on Hades' territory. He approached the two, and they both turned to see Saraerg for the unexpected visit. The blonde got up to shake the black-haired man's hand, but what happened next? The Bale punched Naruto that threw him to the ground. Those present looking at the scene that their pillar fiancé was on the ground. Quickly reacted was Naruto's fiancé to help while Venelana approaches her nephew about this aberrant. Saraerg ignored his aunt. He went to the older Redede, who was also in shock, and then recomposes himself to see about that hostility he has towards him and his future brother-in-law. The Bale bluntly told his cousin if he knew that about the ambushes towards Hanzo Sargatanas, Circiches and also Serapho, you don't know anything about this incident. That bothers the black-haired man, and he asks him the question, if you don't know, then why did the DXD member have them there in the Sargatana's mansion as if they were hitmen? Again Mayu responded that they didn't know anything or were involved. What did Falbium do? Saraerg changes his gaze towards Uzumaki, who was being healed by Asia. Since he did not very agree in changing his old rival for the blonde when they had the first confrontation against him before last year's presentation. Saraerg, his impression of the blonde was to see a version of Razor's old personality, who was so full of pride and acted as if he were the center of the universe. He did not use his sacred gear against Naruto, he used his Toki for a friendly meeting. The leaders, Uzumaki's fiancé, and the blonde himself was very confident that he could easily defeat Bale. Oh, how wrong Naruto was that he cannot underestimate his rival. Naruto activates the balance breaker for the first time, uses the armor's thrusters, in an attempt to give the first attack to the black-haired man. What happened later was a humiliation in a second. The confrontation did not last long, since Naruto was on his knees with part of his armor destroyed. While the Bay Layer did not feel the same emotion when he fought Issei twice, he felt that his fighting spirit was insulted fighting against the new pillar. He walked away from the blonde who could not recover from such a blow that he gave him. His fiancés were helped past him. He looked at him with indifference at the brown-haired man's ex-fiancée, but he fixes the gaze of his cousin, who tells him thank you for putting his place to Uzumaki. He did not say anything and went towards the Mao who had not recovered from the unexpected result. Sarayarg faces Mao Lucifer and says it bluntly and with some sarcasm. There is your pillar and hero of factions on the ground. When he said that and left the place, since then the relationship between Grimoire Bale was going to break in the future, and now he was going to get even now. Sarayarg with an angry look, looked at Naruto, as if he was going to kill the blonde right now, but he spoke. You are not a hero or a messiah, you are just a usurper who does not even deserve my respect, said Sarayarg to Naruto. From now on the relationship between the clan has ended, no member of the Grimoire clan can set foot in our territory, also and, you are no longer a Bale since the moment you supported the idea of engaging Rias with that stranger, he said to the older brunette. Sarayarg, he was angry with our decision, but we did it for the good of the clan, and for the faction. Venelana could not finish because her nephew interrupted her. For the sake of the clan. Didn't you learn from Razor's commitment when my father approved it? You were desperate that Rias wouldn't marry Razor until Issei came to save my cousin from being an incubator to make pureblood babies. Issei gave everything for you, it gave him more fame than he had with Sursages as a Mao, and how did he repay it? Believing in a god over a blonde who didn't know how to exploit his potential. He exclaimed furiously to his aunt. Hey, don't talk to my mother-in-law like that, you bastard. Said the Uzumaki to the black-haired man, but he ignored that, which made the blonde angry. What right do you have to say that? He said, pointing his accusatory finger at Naruto. Letting others torture your son who only wanted to be with his father, not like Hagek, but not letting yourself be influenced by the god that your son had ruined his moment of appointment, or am I wrong? Naruto didn't know what to answer, he kept quiet because of that. If he didn't go, he was expecting a poison dart against him. You know that I don't want to continue talking to you, it's a waste of time, but I'm going to tell you something. He said as he approached the blonde, who grabbed him by the clothes and looked at the black-haired man's face. If I find out that you did something to Rias, I will beat you to a pulp myself. I don't care that you are the pillar of the factions and almost the wife of a group of whores, he said in a threatening tone to Naruto. Sarayarg released Naruto and headed towards the exit without looking at anyone. And, the Bales did not attend that farce of Naruto's engagement party and those women. I'm sorry Rias that I couldn't help you. Said Sarayarg, leaving the room and leaving the castle. After the Bay Layer had left, the place was in uncomfortable silence for those present. Suddenly some servants of the council arrive with a notification that the Mao are in parliament by order of Hanzo, Sursages, Serafal and Ajuka went to the demon council room. That all gave some hostility towards the three Mao. The three are shuddering before such power. Hanzo was not at all happy to serve the Mao, thus began the interrogation between the council and Mao about whether he had participation in what former Mao Asmodeus was doing. Each of them gave their versions that they knew nothing, since he was focused on going to war against Hades' infernal alliance. Hanzo did not believe anything the Redeed said, since he evaded whether his brother-in-law had a participation in the ambush on his mansion and person. He also had the nerve to create an alibi that he and the blonde were outside the capital of Lilith. Old Sargatanas asks the Guardians to bring the people who saw him to the outside of the capital. The Guardians obey the order. A few minutes later the Guardians bring the supposed witnesses. Hanzo asks each one the question. If they saw Mao Lucifer and Naruto Uzumaki outside the capital. The witnesses looked at each other and looked at the Redeed, who says what he said, that they saw him outside. The first gave his version that he saw him from afar and nothing more. The second said that the Mao went to his store to buy all the most expensive wine in his town and also has proof that he entered his business. The third gave his version that one of the guardians of the former Mao Asmodeus said that he will go to help Zekrom as a support group for the Uzumaki group. After listening to the witnesses, between councillor murmured about the betrayal of Zekrom and Falbium. Hanzo gave orders to everyone and looked at the three Mao who were scared. According to the testimony given by the witnesses, your Sursage's Lucifer is safe for now, along with his brother-in-law. He has the first warning token, but if he gives 2 more warnings, your position as Mao will be cancelled and all privileges. He said to the Redeed, who was relieved, however he tensed up because of the threat Hanzo gave. In 6 months, there will be an extraordinary vote to fill the vacant post of Falbium Glaciolabolas. Now the traitors will be imprisoned along with their accomplices and will be executed in public on the anniversary of the Civil War. Do you have any objection to my order? He said to the mass. None of the three said anything to the chairman of the council. "Well, this meeting is over," he said, banging his gavel and asking everyone to leave the parliament. After the council meeting, Falbium and Zekrom were arrested and arrived where they found 3 members of DXD in their cell, the engagement party of Naruto, and his harem was totally bitter for those present. The only one who was enjoying it was Rias since that mini victory over her great uncle Bale, who had approved the marriage of her and Blonde, now karma was charging him and his clan. But he also felt bad that his cousin sacrificed his dream of being a Mayu to clean up the image left by Zekrom. 4 years after Issei's departure, 6 years after Falbium and Zekrom's arrest. The Alliance was having a bad time during the war against Hades and his allies. The god of the underworld had gained power within the Greek pantheon that was supporting Hades, while Zeus was terrified of the position as king of Olympus. Since the elder Cronus did not like the news that his younger brother and king of Olympus had made the engagement of his older sister Hestia, goddess of the home, and Demeter, goddess of agriculture, with the Uzumaki, that was the straw that broke the camel's back for the Greek gods. Created factions that were in favor of Hades and another of Zeus, but the god of lightning did not know that his wife Hera had betrayed him to go to Hades' side. Zeus freed the Titans from Tartarus, along with Naruto, who defeated Hades, and the other rebel gods who did not agree with him and the Alliance, starting a great battle on Mount Olympus. In the middle of the battle, Naruto was fighting alongside the descendants of the hero faction that would be the demigods such as Hercules and Perseus against Hephaestus and Apollo in the territory of Ares. The Uzumaki was in his Baryon plus Diabolos mode, fighting without any problem against Artemis's brother. Suddenly the blonde was transported to another place, thus leaving the descendants alone at a disadvantage. Naruto falls to the ground abruptly, where he gets up from the ground and looks at 3 familiar faces from his dimension. Hagoromo and 2 sons Indra and Asura Otsutsuki, who looked at him seriously and coldly towards the blonde Uzumaki, who shuddered, as did Kurama and Drake. Hagoromo broke the silence. "Naruto Uzumaki, do you know why they are here?" said the sage of the 6 paths with a serious tone. Naruto thought that Hagoromo and his son were going to congratulate him on the work of making peace, however the 3 of them did not think the same about the blonde ninja. "I don't know, but it is to recognize my greatness," Naruto commented arrogantly. "Greatness? I see how Dower-sama said Naruto was completely molded from a god," thought Hagoromo, looking at Naruto with disappointment. "What greatness are you talking about, stupid human?" said Indra, annoyed that he activated the Kamui to go behind the blonde to kick them as hard as he saw towards one of the castle columns. "You really are an insignificant person to let yourself be molded by a god," said Indra with disgust for pronouncing the god. "Betraying your friends, the world, your own principle. You have allowed God to twist your mind until now. Until now you have allied yourself with the very people you swear to destroy." The Uzumaki shakes his head at the words of the sage of the 6 paths. "I have brought peace, freedom, justice and security to 2 worlds," Naruto exclaimed proudly. The 3 of them look at him in disbelief at the blonde's statement. "Safety to both worlds," said Ashura, dismayed at his reincarnation of him. "I see, so your decision has been made," said Hagoromo, closing his eyes. Leaving no other option, "Please don't force me to do this," he said to Rubio. He had recovered. At that moment he approaches Naruto and places his hand on his stomach where Kurama's seal was. "What is he doing?" Naruto asked fearfully, but Hagoromo didn't say anything. "I will strip you of my power and Ashura, since you have shown me that you are not worthy," said the 6-path sage, "as I have removed the Kyuubi seal on Naruto." He screamed in pain that something was coming out of him. It was red glow where Kurama's chakra and power were. The extraction didn't last long. Naruto found himself panting weakly and looking at the 3 with hatred. "What did you do to me? You fucking old man," said the angry blonde. "Naruto disappoints me. I took my power from you," and Kurama answered Hagoromo. "But they're mine. I am the savior of both worlds." I roared in anger. "No more Naruto, I can't believe you're my reincarnation, a damn pedophile who steals couples and has a Yahicha complex," said Ashura with disgust. Naruto activates his balance breaker where he immediately attacks Hagoromo, who managed to cover his staff in Charka's cloak and blocked it. With Sage's initial momentum he manages to throw Blonde to the ground, whose armor breaks at this moment. Hagoromo looking sadly at Blonde boy. "I have failed you, young Uzumaki, and now I return you to the world where you are," said the old man to make his finger snap with the same light that rolled up Naruto and sent him to Mount Olympus DXD. "I'm sorry Naruto, I don't count on our help against a threat that is soon to come," said Hagoromo. The XD world. Mount Olympus. Naruto collects the 5 senses that he had returned to Mount Olympus. Now he no longer had Charka or Kurama as his tool, but that no longer matters. He had other powers that the god had given him, and he used them whenever he wanted. However, his thoughts went out when he saw the bodies of Hercules and Perseus on the ground. The blonde deduced that Zeus's faction fell in a matter of hours without his presence. He activates his armor to go to Zeus's palace to confirm if the king of Olympus was alive or fled to the other factions as an asylum. When he arrived at the door of the palace, he enters stealthily so that no one notices his presence. When he arrived at the throne room, what he saw horrified him for life. There was Zeus's body totally unmarked and his head was turned off while his face was in agony. That meant that Hades was the new king of Olympus. The faction has failed. The victory for the Infernal Alliance. The defeat for the Alliance. Chapter 3. Naruto World Flashback. 5 years after Dimensional Cinema, 4 years after in DxD. Have you ever wondered? How much pain can a pure and innocent mind endure? How much shit must he suffer to change? And in changing, why not take revenge on those who forced them to change? Those who dared to hurt them, those who forced them to live through hell, those who made them mature to survive. Forgive others. Who the fuck cares about that? Wars have started because of human selfishness, wars that sought power and craved the riches of others, wars that forced innocent minds to carry a banner and commit suicide to protect the honor of your land. Forgiveness is not everything, love will not solve everything, and the bad for God they discovered it. A hero had been corrupted, that means reformed his homeworld, and the same universe where he was destined, the Uzumaki was the pillar in his world. His admiration sickens that force him to impose his whims in the universe, where he does not need the intervention of the gods and guardians of Omniverse and Macroverse by the written laws. However, the group of gods and guardians rebels have violated the laws and as a result have destroyed those worlds. They get away with it shamelessly and continue in trend, not regretting the creation of the monster of the former pillars. Change the world, no matter what, leaving it to luck. For them it is a hobby of screwing potential character. In the world of Uzumaki in a year, it was a shake-up in all ninja nations. After being summoned in the Dimensional Cinema by the god, Tsunade returned to her position as 5th Hokage, since her golden age returned when she met the blonde ninja. The busty blonde had made several changes to the ninja system, since now the civil council no longer exists, although the clans were important, but their reputation was losing due to the change. Some of them were the Uchiha. Sasuke had made his surrender after the 4th Ninja War and worked in the shadows as Itachi had done to protect the village and his family, but everything went to shit. The god has taken everything from the black-haired boy. You have focused a lot on his former friend, twisting his mind that he was destined for something bigger than being a cage of the village. Naruto was increasingly convincing others of his new vision of the world in his image. However, there was a sector that did not support him, as it was Kakashi, Konohamaru, Kiba. The youngest son of the Inyazuka cost him dearly. His mother Tsume and sister Hana were on Naruto's side, so he denied being leader of the Inyazuka clan and expelled from the Konoha police. His brown-haired love interest, dog lover, Tamaki, broke up with him to be by Uzumaki's side. Kiba could not bear that anymore, who fell into the mental insanity that led to his death. His friend companion of his generation tried to stop him, but it was too late. Kiba had become a wild animal that attacked in the forests of the village. The Senji sent the Ambu to kill him. That was the death of Kiba in Yazuka, something that the god enjoyed. His friends gave him a funeral. Shikamaru, who continues his friendship with the blonde Uzumaki, distanced himself from his companion friends in the Dimensional Cinema. However, he was greatly hurt by the death of Kiba, but could not do anything. Since Tsunade had made a decree at the request of the god that everyone who was not in favor of Naruto was going to be executed, and also revived the restoration of clans only for the Uzumaki, something that bothered the clans except the Hyuga, Inuzuka, Nara, Akamichi, but Tsunade did not care about the opinions of the clan heads that angered them. The busty blonde did not let herself be bent by the main clans, so she chose to be the first to be publicly executed. Some clans made you go back on their decision, and others did not change their decision, so these days they were left to exist. Their heads were displayed before the villagers. 3 years. On Myabakizen Mountain, Gamamaru was having a prophecy that was going to cause the destruction of the elemental nations. It was not the Utsutsuki clan, but it was beyond this world. The great sage tried to summon Uzumaki on several occasions to warn him, but he never attended to him. Then the sage of 6 paths, Hagoromo, made an appearance in Gamamaru's room. The great toad sage was surprised to see an old friend. Hagoromo took the opportunity to tell him the situation that happened with Naruto. He told him that a god had distorted Naruto into believing all the lies, increasing his ego, thus detached from his own belief that he had in the past, away the achievement of a boy from another world, and occupied as a pillar of the facts. Tortured the brown-haired boy and also his own family that he had made with the former Hyuga. When he finished telling the great toad sage, he had several mixed feelings with sadness, helplessness and disappointment towards Naruto. Gamamaru spoke. I find it hard to assimilate the information you just told me. The truth is that Naruto has let himself be molded by the god in his coexistence, transforming into a being who only wants power like the previous Uchiha, said the great toad sage to his friend. I thought the same, since we saw him, he was no longer the boy from the prophecy who saved the ninja world, now he is unknown to us, and he destroyed the life of an innocent man who had a different goal and dream, said Hiragomo. Also, a god saved me and my children from going to the movie theater, since I cannot deny that the supposed god had such a disgusting presence from the screen, and his gaze did not have a hint of regret or kindness, it was only darkness, said sincerely the wise man of 6 on his way to Gamamaru. Now I understand that this new prophecy has just been born, said the great toad sage, serious for his advanced age. What does that new prophecy say? Hiragomo said curiously. The old toad was very quiet so that he could remember what he saw in his vision of him, and he spoke. I saw some beings of very large metallic shapes causing the end of the elemental nations, destroying everything in their path. The blue-eyed man turned his back on all his beliefs and let those beings extinguish the leaves. The great fire lizard was his eternal rest and never woke up. I saw Boni and his allies falling before the great devastator beginning his conquest. When he finished saying the new prophecy about a new threat that is about to occur, Hiragomo was very serious, since it meant that the X would arrive very soon to the elemental nations. So it was the true consequence that Chichikami-sama had told me in his temple was the thought of the sixth-path sage. Hiragomo. Gamamaru said. Forks. Hiragomo emerged from his thoughts of him. I want to ask you a big favor if you were to summon Naruto Uzumaki. I, the great toad sage Gamamaru, break all relations with him, his sage mode is no longer worthy of carrying it, and his current contract with Gamabunta, Gamakin, Gamahiro, Gamakichi and Fukasaku will be cancelled from this moment on to extract the power of the nine-tailed fox, said Gamamaru. When the wise man from 6 paths was going to speak, he felt that the Uchiha's chakra was slowly diminishing. The old brown-haired man used the Kamui to go towards the Valley of the End. Valley of the End. A few seconds later, Hiragomo arrived at the place to go save the reincarnation of Indra, however he had arrived too late, since on the ground an emaciated Sasuke without his left leg, both eyes were forcibly torn out, and the katana that he always carried was destroyed, and a large fragment of the weapon was used to lock itself in the heart of the last member of the Uchiha clan. Sasuke Uchiha had died. David. Sorry kid, I won't put gore images, because Wattpad is a girl. A sage approaches the dying black-haired man, using his hands to see the last memory that had happened before, and after his fight against Naruto, he saw how Sasuke had put him back in the bingo book for refusing to train the new son of Hokage as Kawaki, that cost him dearly, that his wife Sakura gave the divorce without any explanation, the Uchiha accepted. Signed the documents and was again the most wanted criminal in the world for 2 years, who had a reward that surpassed the previous former member of the Akatsuki organization, until the retired Snake Sannin. Kakashi was also in the book for another reason that God told the cage. After it was announced of this in the bingo book, ever since he left Konoha, Sasuke and Kakashi were chased by a squad of rude Anbu from each village started hunting them. The two mentioned persuaded the rude Anbu and had to fight not to kill him to every squad of rude Anbu where he went, even Mirai Tsuratobi also joined the search party on them. Then that former student and teacher Hagak had to go to the old base Orochimaru. Both were very sad and disappointed about the new change of their friend and student had become that person who was the black-haired man in the past. However, his pursuers had found him and had no choice but to finish them off. Their fight lasted half an hour. Mirai was the only one standing to continue her fight against the black-haired and white-haired. Suddenly someone else had arrived to help the two reborn, and it turned out it was Konohamaru to stop his niece to follow what the god and his former boss Naruto said. The black-haired did not listen to what his uncle was saying, thus starting the fight between uncle versus niece. Sasuke and Kakashi took advantage of the moment to leave the Sound Village. When he was crossing the forest they were ambushed by another group of rude Anbu reinforcements. Kakashi tells Uchiha to run away and live. Sasuke did not want to leave his sensei. But as the situation was he had to leave the white-haired before his enemy. So Sasuke continued his walk, however he had shed some tears since it hurt him a lot to leave his sensei. He also reflected and realized that Konoha was becoming too powerful, whose help from God and Uzumaki after that dimensional cinema presentation. He wanted to go save Boruto from the immense torture he was suffering at the hands of his former rival and the others who were participating. He was surprised that Sarada also entered into the torture of her former teammate, who had a face of joy with each scream of the former Uzumaki. He could only watch the torture of Boruto, Himawari, Hinata and Issei. He felt helpless to go help, however the scum of God has forbidden them to help, so he had to hide in a cave for the next few months. He had to do a new makeover to go to the village that was not recognized. He used Indra's power that changed his hair color and created another set of clothes. So he went out to a Tagakur that had now become Konoha territory. The Uchiha entered a store to buy something for survival, however he had taken the opportunity to listen to the conversations of the villagers that Kakashi former 6th Hagak and 3rd's grandson were arrested and today will be a public execution live through the screen. Around the 12th day, Tsunade and the other Cage were in the middle of the Konoha square, giving their shit speech praising the Uzumaki, and that those traitors have to pay with blood. The people of each nation cheered Naruto's name. The Senju ordered her executioner to decapitate his head and his body to be burned. Those in charge did the order of the busty blonde. Konohamaru in his last word curses Konoha, the god, and finally Naruto, the samurai, using his katana decapitate brown Sarutobi. The next was Kakashi, who looks at the Hagak monument where he had all the faces, but his face was removed and so his head fell rolling. The people again cheered the death of the traitors. Sasuke no longer wanted to continue watching and left a Togakure. In the middle of the forest a dimensional gap opens where Naruto comes out with all the arrogance of the world. "He's still a weak, pathetic loser, I see," Naruto said smugly. "It seems that you finally did the right thing and surrendered to my power," he said arrogantly. "What happened, Naruto?" said Sasuke to his former rival friend, who laughed at the Uchiha's comment. "Well, God opened my eyes. He told me that I was destined for something bigger than being in an office signing the paperwork," he said, spitting venom. "You weren't like that, don't let anyone fool you," said the last Uchiha, who made the blonde growl in annoyance. "Shut up, he has become more powerful than all the ninjas, Hokage, the Jinchuriki, the Sage of the Six Paths, and even the god." His ego increased even more. "I can rule both worlds, everyone will kneel before the Uzumaki clan, we will impose ourselves on each other as we please, forming a 6 mile, only that it disturbed Sasuke. "You can't believe what you say, you destroy the life of an innocent person who had the same different goal, and in the process torture your own family, you have no empathy," said Sasuke seriously. "Don't mention those scum again," he said with contempt. "Kakashi should have trained me, but no. He wanted to train you because you are the great elite, and even Jiraiya's failure to do my training is dedicated to you. He is in those brothels, all those people were against me so that I would not progress as a ninja. I was hoping that you would train my new son Kawaki, but Tsunade informed me that you would reject it," said the blonde to his former partner. "I did it out of dignity so as not to lend myself to that farce that you and that god have put on," Sasuke replied. "Dignity? You, ha 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 ha, what joke are you telling?" Sasuke laughed with grace. "I know you were once an Avenger Emos who wanted revenge on his brother Itachi and to seek power over Orochimaru, and I also remember perfectly what you said in the 4th Ninja War," said the Uzumaki. "Yes, I still remember that I wanted to be Hagak and make a revolution, however I reflect later on my last confrontation with you, I surrendered my sins helping the village in my own way, I finally reactivated my clan with Sakura creating a family, but now I lost everything," said the black-haired man with a certain heaviness nostalgia. "Now our roles have changed, since that supposed god has allowed you to be manipulated and molded to the point where she couldn't finish," because Naruto who began to laugh loudly in the middle of the sentence. "I'm sorry, I couldn't even finish that sentence with a straight face," said the Uzumaki. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" "Who am I?" the blonde asked arrogantly. "Do you know who you really are, Naruto? Or is your ego so big that the truth can't reach you?" "Because I know who you really are, and what you are is just a spoiled brat turned into a false messiah," he turned the question back to his former rival. Something that greatly annoyed Naruto, who summoned his shadow clones to attack Uchiha, and they all charged at the same time with their chakra forming around them to increase their strength, but before any of them could get close to him, they all fell almost to the ground and exploded. The blonde was confused what had happened to his clones. "Damn it, what did you do to my clones?" I asked, demanded Naruto with hatred. "If you want so much, you know, well, look, during this time I had the opportunity to train and understand well the power of Indra that I currently have. I realized that I could reinvent the jutsu that exists in the clan," I responded, while taking out his katana and putting himself on guard. "I see, I didn't expect more from my rival." Naruto snorted as he summoned the boosted gear to fight. "Why is the boy's effector used? Or does the Kyuubi no longer want to give power?" asked the black-haired man. "That bastard did not agree with what I did to that perverted nobody, although the submissive god is a walking battery that can be used without problem in Kurama Barbarian mode in battle." I have responded without a hint of regret. "I'll stop you," Sasuke exclaimed. "You stop me, you are nothing with those eyes and power of Indra the First and the Messiah," exclaimed Uzumaki. After saying that, Naruto launched himself at Sasuke, but this time he made sure to kill him completely. He had forgiven him, however he realized that it was a mistake to give him that forgiveness. However, the black-haired man didn't waste any time and activated the blue Rinnegan. What did the technique that Madara never used in the ninja war do? Banshmkakuin. It is a technique capable of creating a black sphere that attracts matter towards it. While it is activated, the sphere collects debris to hit the opponent with them. Naruto realized what jutsu his rival was using, so his father's jutsu. Hiraishin. Dmrai. To move his former friend's jutsu to another place, causing an explosion where the attack was stopped, but he did not stop Sasuke from using his fire release. great fireball jutsu against a blonde who had no choice but to use the balance breaker to continue the fight. For an hour and a half, Naruto was superior to his rival, since he used the new powers that the god gave him. He used that double sword combo on all of Sasuke's body that filled him with cuts, and his weapon was broken. Then the Uzumaki with the Ascalon sword cut off his left leg. The black-haired man no longer had the strength to continue because Naruto used Volley's ability to diminish Sasuke's power. When he was on the ground, Naruto took the opportunity to take out an instrument of torture that allows him to tear out his eyes. Approaching and putting the mask on him where he let out moans of pain since the entire mask, but seconds later he began to scream in pain because the needles began to move and were inserted into his eyes, Naruto laughing like a madman, and after finishing the torture. He had extracted 2 eyes of his rival and takes him carefully that he drops him to the ground that he revolts. There was no more Sharingan, although Sarada was there, but he is domesticated like his submerged dog. Once finished, he went to Konoha to go for his prize left to Sasuke who was slowly dying. When he finished seeing the bodies of former Uchiha, Haragomo with that had made the decision, if this world no longer wanted his clan because of that bastard god, he does not help intervene in Gamamaru's prophecy about this world and DxD. He took Sasuke's body and went into his kamui to make him a worthy confinement. 4 years. After the sage made his visit to Myabakuzen Mountain, Konoha celebrated the death of the last Uchiha member, and also the rise of Yuzurishi Agakure with Karen and Hanabi Hyuga. There were no more detractors towards Naruto. Even the subject who had humiliated Naruto since he was a child was brought from the past to pay for his crimes. Mogi became a sensei of Team 7, which was formed by Mitsuki, Kawaki and a member named Shina. 5 years. Naruto returned to his homeworld to make preparations for his wedding in Yuzurishi Agakure, as he had a huge list of wives who were getting married. Tsunade Senju, Shizune, Hanabi Hyuga, Tsumen Hana in Yuzuka, Mirai Sarutobi, Anko Midarashi, AM, CHM Akimichi, Fu, Samui, Mabui, Yugito Nai, Mogi, Koyuki Kazuhana. Shion and lastly to add were Tenten and Mei Terumi, who also returned to her golden age. The blonde could not be happier than having such a wife and harem. In addition, the Otsutsuki members were no longer active on Earth, something that surprised all the Kage and Demeo, although he had the blonde on his side, who did nothing to stop any threat that might come. All the world of DxD. Things were not going well for the alliance, as Michael went to the Sargatana's territory to claim Hanzo for having killed his Joker, the president of the council, not in the provocation of the Overlord of Heaven was firm like any good leader. The black-haired man asked Blonde if he knew the assassination plan against him. Michael answers that you do not know anything. Since he had ordered to kill the renegade demon in Kao, he did not inform me anything about killing you. Hanzo very distrustful, does not believe anything Michael says, so he shows him a recording of the interrogation of Cao Cao in his prison, where the leader of the mentally broken hero faction confesses that Naruto asked for their help to go attack the Sargatana's mansion. They all accepted the mission and also had the support of former Maios Madius. When the recording ended, the Overlord had no word or argument to go against Hanzo. Old Sargatanas approaches Michael that his position as Overlord is too big for him, but also takes the opportunity to give his first and last warning to the leader of Heaven, that if he again tries to make a conspiracy against the Sargatana's clan and council, he personally breaks the peace agreement and goes to war. The very scared blonde understood Hanzo's warning, so he left the black-haired mansion. When he left the Sargatana's territory and went to the Gremory castle where Sursages and Azazel were expected along with the other members of the hero faction expected that Michael negotiated with Hanzo to let his companion go. When the blonde arrived at the conference room, the Redeed asked Overlord, how did it go in the negotiation? The Overlord responded that there is no way to save him, since he again said Hanzo's dangerous warning to those present. Sursages was stone and sweaty with nerves. On the other hand, Azazel, despite not being the governor of Grigori, he was now the coordinator of the DxD group. He felt the helplessness of not going to help the descendant of Sun Wukong, since Biku's grandfather stopped seeing him as a grandson after supporting Uzumaki. While Zhuge Liang, a descendant of Zhuge Liang from the Three Kingdoms period in China, was the new leader of the faction. She has the appearance of a cute little girl, about the age of a high school student, wearing a classical Chinese Taoist style. At the side of the new leader were Heracles, Momono Kibitsuhiko, Marsilio, Perseus, Kanya and Guan Yu. She and 4 of the group were not in favor of Naruto, which was neutral. Only the previous member died and imprisoned as Heracles and Perseus were on the side of Uzumaki when she learned that her former leader and sub-leader was in preventive detention. Liang quickly assumed the position of leader of the hero faction, who she makes the decisions from now on. Her first order to the current members is not to help Cao Cao and George, since they deserve this karma. In addition, the young woman accepted the departure of Hercules and Perseus from the faction, since she wanted to go to Olympus to claim her position as demigods. Now it was only the minor group of the faction. Liang asks the red-haired Mayu what about the others who were involved, such as the Gremory Knight, the descendant of Arthur and Lucifer, and also Naruto. Syracuse came to the defense of his future brother-in-law, who was only continuing to be used by founder Baal to regain the council position. The Azazel did the same thing about his adopted son, making the three leaders make the decision that minors were lost for the alliance. The following month, as he had expected the execution of Zekrom and Falbium together of the three former DXD members, Hanzu had gathered all the people of the underworld, and what he was broadcasting in the other factions, and even in Hades' territory, was very curious what was going to happen. An old Sargatanas was currently giving a speech to his subjects to raise their morale. My fellow citizens, we are gathered in Lilith Square to give a public execution to the traitors who tried to overthrow me. The three Mayu did not want to be present because they are too busy with this usurper and false hero as their allies. Naruto Uzumaki, when he said Blond's name, the children began to boo. Besides, they have shown me that you can't even trust your family, so that moment to introduce the new Mass Asmodeus, who will be there the whole time and is a great friend of the former pillar of the factions and Dragon Oppai. I ask Razor Asmodeus, former heir of the Phoenix clan, said Hanzu pointing to Blond, who was arriving with his current wife Ubeluna and full entourage. This information fell like a bomb to the alliance, Syracuse, Seraphol, Ajuka and Ravel herself, who was in shock that the third son of the Phoenix was accessed as the new mass. On the other hand, Naruto was silent. He could only curse the Hanzu for choosing that older Yakitori, since he was in disagreement in supporting him. He also had the nerve when he went to the Phoenix mansion to introduce Ravel's father. The Uzumaki looked at Razor's mother and entourage for his harem. That made the Lord Phoenix very angry. Robert, Razor and Ruvel. Since then the Phoenix family stopped sponsoring the Gremoy and Citri. Hanzu put down the microphone and gave the Razor her entrance speech. Thank you Hanzu-sama and everyone on the council for choosing me as the new replacement for Falbium. I know that everyone present did not have a good image as an heir, however, thanks to my friend Issei, who helped me a lot since that time we faced each other to get out of the commitment between Rias and I. Although I am very upset about what the leaders did, and especially my younger sister changed, said the new Mayu to those present and what he was hearing. Naruto Uzumaki, you have tried to advance towards my mother and my wife during those years with your rival. No matter how hard you try to be the new Sekiryu, you will not be up to the level of my friend, Issei, and you are just a messiah complex. He exclaimed loudly and the people supported him shouting the brown-haired man's name. But the speech over, Hanzu then takes the floor. Well, it's time to sentence the former founder of the Baal clan, former Mayu Asmodeus and finally 3 members of DXD, for the terrible crime of treason and conspiracy, reading the dictation. When I mentioned the crimes of the 5 accusers, there were boos, words of hatred and contempt towards them. Be traitors. You deserve death. Supporting a false hero. His family should be ashamed. I hopefully end in Malaburge. Long live hero Issei. Hanzu and Razor saw that people still continued to remember the brown-haired boy, no matter if he had the boosted gear or his powers of the dragon gods. The danger. What is your verdict? Hanzu asked the people. Guilty. 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 Hanzu instructed the executioner to put him in the mercy seat first. The man complied with the president's order, putting Biku first. Hanzu along with Razor lift the purge to give them the order. The rest of the public also did so. All turned their purge down. The executioner with his axe takes the life of Sun Wukong's descendant. While inside the Gremory castle, everyone was sad about Biku's death, but mainly the Yake seeing their partner fall. Naruto could only curse Hanzu and Razor again, who will do everything possible to kill him, so he stays with those women. Such was the fate of Cao Cao, George and Falbium, something that he showed no regret for what he did. In fact he would do it again. The former Mayu Asmodeus, Hanzu changed his sentence even worse than being decapitated. They had to make the stone and the axe disappear, replaced by a large wheel that half had an X shape and a club, to give more flavor to the torture that was open to the people. The people got so excited that they wanted to hit Falbium and Zekrom. Something that scared the two of them and the alliance that wanted to avoid this punishment since it was inhumane. The only one who didn't say anything was Rias, since she was enjoying how her great-uncle Baal was going to die. I hope Grandmach Isis and great-grandma Runias come to help me, thought the deed. Well, she saw that in a week the forced wedding with the others was coming on Issei's birthday. Clarification 2. First of all, most will know my female Ak of the Masters of Madness and Evil, the mother of all angels. Israfel because she will be in charge of giving the change of leader of the faction of heaven and the punishment to the traitors of heaven and thus giving birth to the new subspecies that will have pink wings for their sin of lust. Second, as you know, the cover of volume 7 of Shin came out a few days ago, revealing the founder of the Gremory clan and grandmother of Syracuse and Rias, Runia's Gremory, who despite her appearance, is hundreds of years old. Chapter 4 Part 1. The Great Hall of Judgment of the Marcoversal. Inside the Great Judgment Hall were multiple macroversal gods and guardians following, accompanied by their minor gods of their world. Most were serious, others bored, others took advantage of making conversation after seeing each other in previous meetings, and others who were being novices were very nervous and scared of being before a different rank of gods. Everything was normal until the great judge and president of the citadels of Hypocrisy entered with a squad of judges hunting on a Supreme Court balcony. Everyone stood up to give their respect to the president of Hypocrisy, as well as Dower and the other gods of his world. The great judge president observed those present who had attended the great courtroom and looked at the black-haired god, along with Shichigami Mu no Megumi and Haragomo on his plaintive balcony. On the other hand, a door opens in the floor where the god was coming out, who was being protected with special handcuffs that nullified all his power, and next to him were two judges with their weapons at any time if he tried to do something stupid. Murmurs, reactions and insults passed through the courtroom where the sentencing hearing of the trial of versus God was taking place, who had a shit-eating smile, making the gods angry. Silence, exclaimed the judge, and he lowered the gavel a few times to restore order and then looked at Dower. Dower, what are you accusing this god of? Asked the black-haired man who spoke. Your Honor, if you allow me, answered Dower, who agreed to the judge, and his balcony went towards the center of the room. Dear brothers, gods and guardians, today we are gathered here in this great room to reveal the greatest crime so atrocious that you have committed. This god, no better said scum of a god, claims to be an equal of us, said Dower with disgust. Years ago the god has abused his authority to intervene in worlds to make react where you have imposed your tastes as a shonen character, and changing the pillars of the universe where your presence is not needed, and as a consequence you have broken the balance of power of dimensions, told the black-haired man to use his power, creating a memory screen to see the evidence to the judge. The accused and those present at the omniversal hearing. I have several witnesses against God, in addition to the court prosecutor busy asking the witnesses questions, told the danger to the judge. Judge accepts Dower's request. Another character who came to the present had red hair, purple eyes with a magic circle, and clothes similar to Alucard Helsing, but his trench coat was purple. Alucard Jr. Brando. Thank you, Dower, gods and guardians of the omniversal audience, being the prosecutor of the court, who will be in charge of the witnesses against God, who has violated our laws, said the redeed. I ask for permission to show the evidence that proves the things he has done in that and other worlds without authorization, since he did not have the rank or permission to meddle in other universes, he told the judge. Permission granted, said the supreme judge to Alucard. Ours is the first witness of a variant of Issei who is also a victim of the god, said the red-haired prosecutor. I present to you Paper Issei, from the universe of Gonzo the Ripper. Witness. Paper Issei. Crimes of the god that paper uncovered. Defamation of other characters such as Shinji, Zenitsu among others, and also God himself, was an accomplice to the witnesses of his suffering. Sexual abuse of women of other dimensions and causing NTR to other partners. Giving powers from other dimensions to other pillars, which is totally forbidden unless you ask for permission from the order, and you didn't. Paper Issei, can you tell us what this god did to you? Asked prosecutor Alucard Jr. to a variant of Issei. Well, I remember that day, said Paper Issei, telling his testimony about him and creating a screen to see Chestnut's memories of him. Testimony narrated by Paper Issei. I was with the others, my girls, the facts, my friends, and I also saw other people that we had never seen. But there I saw my hero. There Goku. Until he appeared. He claimed to be a god who would show us different dimensions and realities. I got excited and imagined myself in other dimensions being a hero, or that I was with my girls forming a family. How wrong I was. When I saw a pretty girl, a force felt through me, and I said, I hope to make her part of my harem. Everyone looked at me angrily, but Rias looked at me as if she was confused. But that's where that god began to show the universes. People began to congratulate them for their achievements, but I saw how my girls were attracted to them. I was going to say something. That force was felt again and made me say, I hope there is a dimension that makes me attract girls. Everyone looked at me in a disgusting way and with hatred, except Rias and Haruko too. It seemed strange to me that she didn't look at me with hatred. Everyone looked at me as if I were an arrogant pervert and a sick breast addict. I understand that I am a pervert, but I never crossed the line with a woman. And arrogant. I am never arrogant. I don't know what the hell is going on. Some of them beat me and left me on the verge of death. The worst thing was that god healed me so that they could torture me again. Another god had arrived who simply tortured me. Rias and Haruko were on my side. Those damn people. Made everyone despise me. Showed a universe where I was a genocidal murderer and a rapist of women. Made them consider me a damn murderer. When we finished seeing that universe, everyone looked at me with hate, resentment and poison, and they tortured me until they wouldn't stop, and the two gods healed me so they could torture me again. They did it again and again and again. And again they tortured me, they made fun of me, they rejected me, they hurt me. And if that wasn't enough for them, Drake abandoned me. End of paper. Issei's testimony. When I heard the testimony and the memories of Chestnut of the numerous torture where also God came to the aid of his companion God, who had unleashed great chaos in the whole room where some released their power, others released different curses, and another restrained himself from going to kill God, was protected by the guards of the room. It was not the only testimony where the presence of God had occurred that you have participated in another domain without authorization. In the universe of Maski Issei by Sun Lagashi Parker 50. Where he changed his name making himself pass as Black Vader, using the appearance of Black Goku where he only showed the universe of Goku, Naruto, Izuku, Natsu and Spider-Man, and also showed the false dark universe of this Issei, which does not appear in the data list, and again prohibited use of mind control on the characters he hates changing his former self, and where he was subjected to torture in pure Saw style, where he was the delight of that god, and the only one who continued to believe in Issei was Rias. Then he threw Issei's body into a special dimension for them that he threw all the bodies of the Isseis. The universe of Issei Revenge by Asastica. He helped Darkness change the cast of Dragon Ball for ones from the betrayed Goku universe, and he was also one of those involved in giving him the promotion to multiversal god when he not only killed Issei, but also the god in charge, because according to him, he was not doing a good job as a god. And now it was the last witness's turn. She was a woman with a good model body, she had a long-sleeved grey dress, with a white bow with a green stripe, with white gloves, Princess Leia-style hair and the rest loose, and her eyes are the same hair. She was the Chichigami Mu no Megumi of the X-world. Goddess Chichigami, what testimony do you have against that god? Asked a red-haired prosecutor. The truth is a lot, the pink-haired woman responded without emotions, something that gave the god chills. Please, can you tell us the facts for our audience, said Alucard Jr. Tsuchigami began to tell the story of her best friend and the event that occurred with the god. Inside the cosmic screen. Memory of Chichigami. A millennium ago, my friend Clajan was the most beautiful goddess in the X-world because she is a woman and she was forbidden to leave the multiverse. Clajan was extremely peaceful and did not like conflict, and she chose to go to diplomacy, which kept her neutral in some conflicts in our world. Clajan helps other worlds through her diamond power to replace energy sources with harmful ones, she also guides other minor gods on the right path, and everyone adored her for her beauty, kindness and charisma. However, it was not happiness for Clajan, a multiversal god called Setches, who had come to the X-world to make her life hell, since he had fallen in love at first sight and would do anything to conquer her. His first encounter with Clajan and Setches was at the meetings of multiversal gods, where the latter was shown to get along with most gods and did not cross paths with others, since the latter has grudges, because he had come to complain to the president of Witpadverse about his work in the worlds he had been in charge of. She was with me at all times, Setches approaches to introduce her to us. At first I thought he was a decent man due to rumors he had. Clajan gladly accepted the god, Setches felt in love with Clajan's such beauty, and from that moment on an obsession with her was born that marked his end. Setches arrives at the temple where she was invited to go out for a picnic in the temple courtyard. Clajan gladly accepted Setches, so the two had a healthy coexistence. Setches asks her some things about her life, she answers him in a kind way to the god, and everyone listened to him to use him in their plans to conquer her. He sent gifts of all kinds for her to leave. Clajan accepted the gifts, however she was not sure about leaving her temple, and even arrived where she performed her duties as a goddess in the nearby world. Setches wanted to take her to dinner at the restaurant in that world, but she rejected him, since she had other plans with me. He forcefully accepted his failure as a dinner guest and went there. On another occasion when she arrived at my temple where we were having tea, Setches declared his love for her in front of me, and she, who took him by surprise, Clajan replied that she was not ready. He again felt rejected and spoke in a forced manner with a smile. Don't worry, he has enough time to think. He had left the temple without saying goodbye. I approached my friend to take care of him, since she did not like that attitude at all, but she told me not to worry, since he would not hurt me, so we continued our tea party. He tries again to declare his love several times, and almost all of them were unsuccessful. In addition, his change was sudden when once he yelled at some villagers during their visit. He was also acting as a stalker wherever she went, and even the very damn one put a camera to spy on where she bathes in the hot springs in order to obtain materials for himself. I also remember an occasion when he wanted to do a mission in a universe where he was in trouble. He and Clajan went to this universe to solve it diplomatically. She was the negotiator with the world where a chestnut was betrayed by everyone when those two arrived in the world, and he found out that it was an alternative DXD universe. Setches did not last to throw the mission overboard, since it was against that Issei who was fighting against an alliance of factions. When he arrived at the battlefield he invoked his weapon where he brutally murdered him at the pillar of that world. Issei was pierced from the piece to the heart in front of the whole world. Nobody knew what was happening, then the whole world was collapsing like glass, the allies and the alliance with the former harem of mention turned to dust until nothing was left. From there it was a breaking point for Clajan, since she never saw such hatred towards a single individual who was only fighting for the better good of his world and now no longer exists in the world. Setches had calmed down however, when he turned to see Clajan, who was angry and disappointed in him. Setches understood that she hates him, but it didn't matter since he was in love with her. After the mission, the two arrived to make their report where this altered everything that never destroyed that world. Clajan had filled the patience and her kind side of Ella with Setches. She had made the decision and said it in her face. I thought I was different from the other gods, that I hated that character without any reason, but now I realize that you are the same as them or worse. Those gifts and words were lies to fill that gap of unhappiness that I'm sorry you don't deserve to love. With these words she had broken Setch's heart and she returned to her temple. Well, he just started acting like a madman and also left the place, so they had a few years without seeing each other. Clajan was better with myself since at that moment she had become more social with the other novice gods to ask for blessings. But the day had arrived that marked everything. She was taking a bath while she was calm, as if someone disturbed her peace. Setches entered the temple where he killed Clajan's personal guard and servant until he reached where she was in her thermal bath. With a sick mission she was raped and murdered for having rejected him. He took off all her clothes and entered naked towards where she was. Clajan had not realized that someone entered, then taken by surprise by Setches. He covered their mouths with his hands, while another took both of their hands and threw him to the ground. Clajan was scared when she saw the change in Setches that was madness and lust against her. She tries to get away, but he summons some chains to force the hold. Setches releases his hand where his mouth was covered, but bad luck that Clajan started to scream, calls his guard to help him. But he slaps her to shut up. Clajan was shocked by the slap Setches gave him. He began to say that he was a murderer to everyone who cared for him, since he did not want to ruin the private moment with her. She understood what he was going to do, and he was scared her a lot. She began to use her feet to kick him. But it was in vain since Setches stole her first kiss and followed taking her private parts groped making her moan unintentionally. He continued his work until the climax came and her first orgasm. Clajan's whole body felt heavy and strange. Setches saw that the first part was complete and now the job was finished with snatching her virginity. He did not hesitate to force her in making her scream in pain that her hymen was broken. Setches was enjoying Clajan's expression of suffering. He made sudden movements until he reached the uterus hit hard, so they had several hours where she had been mentally broken by him. Setches put a special mark on her for each time he came inside her, and the essence of this was erased to avoid suspicion against him. The only thing missing was the last step was to kill. Setches used the ability that Demon King Tyranny had to explode his heart inside Clajan, and Clajan felt an invisible force that was taking his heart making it explode, and so she died. Setches felt very satisfied. He cleaned the whole place and Clajan's body to his room on the bed. There he left the place so as not to raise suspicion, and the evidence was eliminated so as not to be used against him in the future for a long time. The next day, I arrived at the Clajan temple to go to lunch as usual, feeling that something was not right. Since there were no guards or servants of my friend, I began to worry, so I ran to her room where she was asleep when I approached her to talk to her, but she didn't say anything to me. I get closer to her heart to see if it was beating, not to feel her heartbeat. Since day I had lost my best friend at the hands of Setches. End of Chichigami testimony. Again the whole room was silent while Chichigami was crying, remembering that successor. Setches felt massive fear since behind him was the look of death against some goddess. Others empathized with Mu no Megumi, the rest were more than furious. This god had fallen to the bottom that everything else had been shown. Objection, Your Honor, exclaimed the defender with apparent indignation. I object to my client being treated in this manner. Said Setches' lawyer. Rejected, said the supreme judge, while Setches snorted in annoyance. Murmurs and whispers spread throughout the room, and the judge had to call the macroversal courtroom to order. Very well. Do you wish to be cross-examined, defense attorney? Asked the judge. No, my lordships. He said in a defeated tone. The testimonies of Setches' victim are exhaustive evidence, and they concluded that he is unstable. It is more than proven that this title of multiversal god is not suitable. Said Alucard Jr. I didn't do anything, it's all eyes from DALR. Exclaimed Setches. You still refuse to admit the truth, I see then. How do you explain that we found a fragment of hair on Clajan's body? Asked the red-haired prosecutor. Setches had fallen silent as he had no argument to respond to. Your silence confirms it, said Alucard Jr. with contempt. The courtroom had fallen deathly silent, and everywhere the gods and guardians were looking and pointing at the Setches, who were trying to look away from the murderous gaze against him. The evidence is very damning, such as for many centuries you thought that you were going to get away with it like the others, my friend, that I am a blind idiot who does not observe your damn actions that make those multiverse and more destroy the life of a character, as if it were a simple toy for you, being a god is a hobby, said the judge president severely. While the jury was watching everyone and was made up of 5 gods. Bulguardian Chileno. Shiro Hyoutou 2768. Siakamus. Palatino Emiya. Subaru SAMA 12345. One look at the jurors told Seches that his chances of escaping the sentence were below 0. Seches' defense attorney, you have the last words. Said the judge president. Seches' last hope lies with his lawyer. He was confident that he would get out of it, but in reality he was going to be convicted. Ladies and gentlemen, Your Honor, as a defense attorney cannot refute the evidence, as prosecutor Alucard said, the testimony and evidence are undeniable, said the man, while Seches was in disbelief. Seches' fate was sealed and there was no turning back. And there they came, the decision was near. One by one, the jurors entered the courtroom and took their places. Have you come to a decision? The judge asked the jury leader. We have, Your Honor, GCH respond to the judge president. The spectators held their collective breaths and Seches' tension grew to incredible heights. It says the following, Your Honor. Guilty.all in favor of guilty, said GCH seriously coldly. Seches was pale at the verdict, only the worst was yet to come for him. God Seches.you have violated the sacred laws of Hypocrisy, which is a disgrace to us, your behavior has only brought consequences wherever you go, now with that last reaction Narutoverse, you brought a threat that its champion cannot defeat, said judge president. What threat are you talking about? I thought it was a chimera as the final boss, said Seches without understanding. There is no doubt that you are very ignorant, you went to the X world without knowing the evil gods. Lato Eevee, said Dowler seriously. No, I only remember hearing some such Malvazoa, Wriggleseva and Cerasalps. Said the albino. I see at least you know a little, since your intervention and exchange of pillars, you have snatched away the 12 celestial breasts that Chichigami was putting on Issei, now with it you have accelerated the destruction of 2 universes, said the black-haired man. And what is it about that perverted nobody? Asked Seches. This perverted nobody that you call him was the only salvation for the world of DxD and Naruto, but now with the way things are, those 3 arrived very soon to Uzumaki's homeworld. Seches' eyes widened in surprise at the revelation. Now with that brilliant idea, Chichigami has to make a new selection of 10 emergency girls for his immaturity. Said Dowler as he left the courtroom with Chichigami and Haragomo. Seches, I have been very careful in examining the evidence presented to me by the prosecution, I have read every opinion, report and God knows what, but everything led me to one conclusion. That you are guilty. Said the judge president, banging the gavel signed with the sentence. Your sentence, your title of God has been overthrown now, your crime is too great which will be locked up in Malaburge. Phantom Zone where you will be watching the Narutoverse with your family where Naruto will humiliate you, don't you think so? Seches did not like that sentence at all, he did not want to see his mother, sister, aunt and his love interest in the hands of his hero, which he could not stand, but it was the wish he wanted. No. Please, give me another chance, I will do my job well like a god. Seches shouted desperately. You have to assume your actions and consequences when I became a multiversal god, as I said before you are not fit to do so and do not worry, your position will be given to someone else who deserves it. Said the judge president. From under the floor there was a large metal door where there was a special pentagram and from there that door opens to see the ghost zone. Seches makes a last attempt to leave, however the door traps him, turning him into a crystal being and putting him inside the Malaburge portal. Phantom Zone, once his work is done the door closes and he returns to the depths of the dark Multiverse. This trial is over, everyone returns to your activities. Said the Hypocrisy president. All the gods and guardians obeying the order of their president, everyone returned to their domain. But Dowler and the others. Dowler was entering his macroversal god office with his companion, inside the office was a beautiful woman of 30 years of age, with blue hair with a large areola, green eyes, wearing a blue dress like her hair and blue angel wings, as if she were of high rank. It was Israfel. Mother of the angels of the multiverse. Dowler could sigh because he knew that Israfel was not at all happy with that innocent face that was going to bring out the information. Chapter 4 Part 2. Hours before Seches' capture before his predestined trial. You could see a squad of judges that was being led by a macroversal god who is an expert in capturing rebellious gods for having violated the sacred laws of Hypocrisy, and it was BROKENHEARTS12U. Broken observed the group of judges judging that they were rookies to do a high-end mission to capture renegade gods that would never arrive alive in their hands, the only judge who arrived alive and was the variant of Rias Gremory who paid the consequences of her homeworld where Naruto was. Unlike her counterpart that accepted the proposal of Judge Dredd after exterminating Naruto, and the other scum who changed him to her fiancé Issei, the former Grimoire heiress, had a long process to convert among the ranks of the judges of the multiverse. Now she, made to infiltrate the dimensional room, where the cast of RWBY and Naruto were in intermission, before showing the next universe dedicated to Uzumaki, Broken receives notification from Judge Rias to begin the operation. The god and judges took their weapons to make the visit to the Seches, and that version of Naruto that was slowly falling into the corruption of Seches. Dimensional room. Intermission of RWBY reacting to Naruverse. Inside the room, Seches was watching his idol, who was surrounded by women from RWBY and Naruto, while a certain sector was very far from everyone and was John, Sasuke, Sakura and Hinata because they were the punching bags for Seches and Naruto. Arc had been left almost alone, his team Purah, Nora and Ren and his RWBY friends and family Arc was next to Naruto. John, when he was going to make a comment questioning Blond's abilities, automatically earned himself a beating and humiliation from Naruto, even showing a false universe where he was a villain, murderer and rapist, something that teacher Vice Principal Glinda was considering expelling him from Beacon Academy, since his family had expelled him and removed the Arc surname. There were only a few people who had faith in the blonde, the former Arc was Velvet and May Nazma. Seches had already planned the next universe where he was Chinese Emperor versus Hades, however it never happened, and much less his armies of ox and sexual slaves that he had kidnapped in some universes, among them Little Eerie, Two-Eye and Little Charlotte, while outside the dimensional room was Broken and a squad of judges. Broken kicked the double door. God Seches. BROKENHEARTS 12 You Guardian of the multiverse, I come as a representative of the macroverse. You are arrested for excessive alteration of realities. Prepare to be taken to the judgment of the multiverse, where your crimes will be seen. Everything you say can and will be used against you. If you show signs of resistance, I will use brute force, he shouted, entering the large movie theater. Shit, I didn't expect the arrival of the judge squad being accompanied by Broken, who is an expert in hunting renegade multiversal gods. That's bad for my plans, thought Seches, angry, scared. Broken, what to do in an unauthorized territory? Said Seches, who tried to impose his authority on him, something that did not work against him. You have the right to say that, and I also have authorization from the Wapidverse. Answered Broken, who was expelling too much humor. Also, I came to free a character that you forced to be with his Naruto. Said the god hunter while he was taking out a special grenade. What is a weapon? Ruby asked, mentally controlled, but she did not let herself drool over the grenades. Wait, it's the spice grenades. Seches couldn't finish when Broken spoke. That's right, little Net, that beauty will free him from the mental control of that supposed god and return him to the person he loves, Broken answered. Quick, my ox, attack against Broken and avoid that grenade at all costs, Seches shouted to his assistant of him, who obeyed the order of his lord of him, but the one there did not obey the order. It's my signal. Said some of the supposed albino ox, who took advantage of the situation to kill some of the Seches ox. The girl, who slowly drew her sword and with a dark expression, found herself one of the most powerful ox according to Seches. The supposed ox is behind them, she makes a movement and decapitates his head to the ground, which calls the attention of some of Seches' girlfriends, since some of her harem sisters do not understand Seches' order from her. Akia-chan, what the hell are you do? He couldn't finish because his body was cut into 3 pieces that fell to the ground. Damn traitor, how dare you? Said another, who went over to the traitor, but she made a flash that appeared behind her in the air, who was pierced by the hands of the traitor who had taken her heart from her. She had died. Akia, what the hell are you doing? Asked Seches angrily, who couldn't move because he was surrounded by the squad. Broken saw the signal from the infiltrator to throw the grenades at Naruto's supposed harem, who was protecting him. Naruto, quickly use a jutsu to make that smoke disappear. Said Seches desperately. Naruto was going to do his wind release jutsu, but someone had cut both of his hands to the ground. I, the Uzumaki screamed in pain. Shut up, you bald guy, said the traitor, who knocked him to the ground. Naruto, his girls exclaimed, but he was breathing that strange fumes that were entering his nostrils, which had come from Seches' mental control of him. Ooh, what have you done? Said Seches with hatred to Broken, but he responded with a tackle that sent him to the ground. Nothing, I just used my truth grenades to free those girls and women of RWBY. Broken answered. As I said before, your reign of terror is over, he said seriously, against a god who did not accept being caught by them. A few minutes later, Seches found himself handcuffed, while the women of the Naruto and RWBY world were no longer under Seches' mental control, some of them shoveled in the balls of Uzumaki, who also had a wife by the traitor infiltrators, who turned out to be Rias using her suit camouflage since the original Akia died. Rias and the other judges erased John's memory of Naruto's world and returned him to his world, but the blonde arc attacks Broken who had saved him from his torture, also Ruby, Fura and a surprised Neo, were to help John. On the other hand, Naruto was stripped of the powers given by god Seches, and a restriction seal was placed on him if he were to be summoned again by other gods like Seches. Although Rias was the only one who wanted to have his head, but Broken calmed him down. Another revelation that was also in that same dimensional cinema, as Rias said that Seches had a special room. Broken, Rias, and part of the judge squad taken to Seches to prevent him from escaping goes down deep, and there he finds a dark room. Broken kicks the door, and what he saw was not pretty at all. Several girls from different anime were chained, beaten and dull, because they were brutally raped by Seches to fill the void left by Klajan's rejection. That was the last straw that exceeded Broken's patience, who did not hesitate to launch himself against Seches. While Rias and some released some of them, others took their own lives by bleeding into their own throats with their hands or tongue. Damn you, what have you done to that woman? Broken demanded an answer from Seches, but he spit on him, which greatly angered the guard who crushed his face. Seches, from now on to a special cell and then to your trials, said Broken carrying the albino. The operation to capture Seches was a success, and it was only a matter of hours before Justice did his job. Current affairs. Dower office. What was an office? Now the whole place was destroyed, but who was responsible? It was not necessary to think much, and it was Israfel, mother of all angels, who had away her anger because she was never taken a lover of violence, however those who had the audacity to challenge them. On one occasion in an alternate universe of SNV where Kronos had murdered Zeus, and that very arrogant had tried to flirt with her by force, and as a consequence Israfel in the blink of an eye had annihilated all the titans and a Kronos traumatized for life, who never underestimated the mother of all angels. How do you want me to calm down? My grandchildren have participated and been manipulated by that scum, Seches said Ursifal, who did not let go of his power from him. Please Israfel-sama, calm down, you are destroying everything. Hiragomo said very nervously. True, I do and apostrophe T want to be scolded by the president, said Dower, who was repaired with all his power. Okay, I don't want to be scolded either, said the mother of all angels. Well, returning to the matter of DXD's special punishments, said the black-haired boy to those present. For my part, I would remove Michael from office, since you have shown me that he is too big to fill the gap left by my son. I already have the ideal candidate to take his place, said Israfel to Dower. And who would it be? Chichigami asked curiously. That will be revealed in the middle of the wedding of that blonde complexion of a so-called god and his bitch. In addition, Gabriel and Penemu will have a special punishment, she said in a sweet tone, something that sent shivers down Dower's spine and the wise man of 6 paths and 2 children. I will also go to that world to confront that imbecile Uzumaki, said Chichigami seriously. Okay, I leave it all in your hands, Dower said. And what will happen with the Infernal Alliance? Asked Indra. Well, Hades is already king of Olympus, which means that his alliance with Malvaso is going to be broken because he has fulfilled his objective. Obviously Hades and his allies have signed their own deaths for breaking the alliance, answered Dower, who took out a cigarette to eat and smoke. How long do you think it will take me to reach the shinobi world? Asked Ashura. Within a month at most, said the black-haired man. Let's be serious, do you think we can find a replacement for heavenly breasts? Said the retard, not very sure. We won't be able to bring in new girls, it would make the situation worse than it is now, said Israfel. I thought the same, although within Naruto's world he saw some anomaly that was not in Seches' plan, said Dower. What anomaly did you see? Asked Hagoromo. 10 girls falling into the world of Uzumaki, which is 2 different worlds, but fulfills the role of being a ninja. Dower explained. Those 10 girls don't know who Naruto Uzumaki is, and I sent someone to protect him, said the black-haired man, removing the humor from his mouth. I see, you've already calculated everything, right? Said Ashura. Yes, and Hinata, Issei's current wife, has no problem accepting those girls, and adding that Rias Gremory was another victim of Seches, who did not let herself be manipulated, unlike the other versions of her who accept Naruto without reason, said Dower. We agree on that, since some of her were just a perfect toy to manipulate, and she pays the consequences of those gods, said Israfel without emotions, since she saw Angra see some Rias from Naruto DXD crying in regret and asking for a chance to meet her Issei. Well, I'm leaving. I'm going to prepare to go to DXD, said the pink-haired girl who is leaving. In my case, I will go to my territory to bring my personal guard and the new leader of heaven, said the blue-haired woman who opened a portal and left the 4 men. We will also do everything possible, said the 3 of them, leaving Dower alone. Now he was alone, the black-haired man sat on his desk chair and activated a screen where he saw Issei and her new family living on the island, which made Dower smile. The XD world. Sky faction. The situation for heaven and its leaders was not normal, since lately some angels were reincarnated and seraphim were becoming fallen en masse, but the case of the women of heaven was different because their wings were not black, but were semi-pink, something that Gabriel does not understand. But Michael did know, since it was a matter of time before his grandmother was going to be the final judgment against them for supporting Naruto and the imprisoned god Seches. And that day came, everyone was in the great room of the seventh heaven, and they also had to bring Azazel and the other fallen, because it was also of utmost importance. Azazel saw Michael very scared, nervous. Suddenly everyone was in a special pocket dimension for heaven, where Israfel was appearing with a serious face along with his special guard and the man who had the same wings as Michael. The angels and fallen ones bowed deeply to the mother of all angels. "Get up, everyone," said the blue-haired woman in a tone of steel, things that shook everyone. "Do you know why I'm here?" Michael and Azazel, said Israfel. "Yes, Israfel-sama," they both said. "Oba-chan, I thought you weren't going to come to my wedding with Naruto-kun," Gabriel said happily, to which Michael's mouth touched. "So you also let yourself be manipulated by that supposed god," said Israfel to the older blonde. "Huh? I don't understand what that means, Oba-chan," said the blonde, who didn't quite understand the situation. "Gabriel, I didn't come to see your farce wedding with that puppet Seches," said the blue-haired girl. "So, why do you eat?" asked the seraph. "I came to make a change to heaven and Grigori," said Israfel seriously. "What change are you going to make?" Uriel asked nervously. "First, Michael, from now on stop being the leader of heaven, today be a cadre without assuming another position of the Grigori, and we'll give it to the new leader male who is more capable, and you will also give it to Nuriel. I do not want to complain," said Israfel, seeing both blonde brothers. "Yes, Israfel-sama," said Gabriel and Michael, obeying their grandmother's order. "Azazel, even though you resigned as governor years ago, you are not exempt from my punishment. In your case it would be different. I will close your entire laboratory and suspend the artificial sacred gear. If you don't do this, I will personally go and completely destroy it." Azazel agreed with Israfel's order. "And more punishment, Gabriel and Penemu would be so kind as to show your wings," said the mother of all angels. Both women agreed to their grandfather's order when he showed them his 6 pairs of wings, where she was surprised that his wings no longer had the gold and white color in the case of Gabriel and Negra like the night of Penemu, and now it was completely pink. The same applied to Irina, Griselda, Marana and Akeno, their wings were pink. "Oban-chan, what happened to my wings?" Gabriel asked, horrified. "If you want to know, I'll gladly answer you. The heaven system is entering a critical state in my territory that is connected to heaven, which you have informed me that Michael manipulated the angelic system so that not everyone would fall. At first I thought it would be a fall, but so I came to the conclusion that a subspecies of angels would be born based on the capital," without answered Israfel casually, while Gabriel wanted to faint from that punishment. "Those wings represent lust. This may be the punishment for any fallen angel, you with the first one along with her who has the same punishment, seeing the fourth mentioned. Also, tell me, Gabriel, why don't you use your power to read Seches' heart?" he said directly to the blonde who was in a trance and couldn't answer the question. Michael answered it for her. "I was the one who didn't do it," said Michael. "Why get ordered?" He wanted to know his grandson's version of him in dimensional cinema. "I thought he was like my father, since his aura of confidence, besides Naruto, would be a better option for us, and also for you," Michael said. "Oh, that's what you think, Michael, but I regret to inform you that this god who took him there is not a saint, much less like his biblical father god. If he had me, he would agree with me that he is not fit to be a leader since he died in the faction war," said Israfel. "Do you have proof that you say that, Grandma?" questioned Barakiel, who had Akeno unconscious. "I'm offended, Barakiel. I have evidence of what that god has committed, where he was involved and related to where his Naruto is going to say," the blue-haired girl. Israfel summons the big screen to watch Seches' great crimes. An hour passed after Israfel showed everything that the locked god had done. Everyone was horrified at what they saw. Penemu and Akeno covered their mouths to see how Seches had girls as sexual pets for his twisted fun. Irina did not want to see more torture of different Isseis at the hands of Seches, Naruto's and some others. Michael was regretting having given that order not to read that bastard's heart. Even Azazel was disturbed as his former student was raped by the monster and Naruto himself. Israfel told those present that it was difficult for him to get through what they saw. "Now you understand why Seches put Naruto in his world to usurp Issei Haidu," she said seriously. "So that world never saved you at the hands of Naruto?" said Metatron. "No, without a catch, that world would automatically be condemned by the threat they had to face, not Naruto," he answered. "And what threat comes to our world?" asked Azazel. "I'm not the person to tell you, but someone else will come," said Israfel. "I'm waiting, Grandma, what's happening to us?" Penemu asked desperately. You should have thought about changing Issei for an unknown who can't finish a training session completely, especially if a god is a bootlicker," he said coldly to Penemu. "Now you have to assume the consequences of your actions," he said as the special dimension disappeared along with his guard. Inside the same room there are two new people who are the leaders of heaven. Mail and Nuriel. "You have 24 hours to bring something to Grigori." Mail spoke in a calm tone to the new fallen and subspecies. "Arena, notifying your friends that you have lost the gift of praying and touching anything holy is already an even more deadly poison," said Mail seriously. "Yes, Mail-sama," Arena said in a dead tone. "Padre Michael is prohibited from entering all the accesses of heaven due to his betrayal against Issei and the biblical god," said Nuriel, with disappointment to the 11th leader of heaven. Thus the day passed, where Mail and Nuriel appeared before the supernatural world before Naruto and his fiancée's wedding. Hanzo and Razor took the opportunity to speak with the new ruler of heaven to remake the alliance. On the other hand, Michael informs the other faction leaders, without Naruto's presence, of the change of leaders of heaven. Meanwhile the former angels and fallen, when they returned to the Hyaoju mansion, were all together and Naruto making more preparations for the wedding. The four mentioned when they saw blonde Uzumaki had a desire to kill him for having ruined the life, but all calmed down by that new change. Rias saw him crying to Akeno, and Arena, who took a bottle of vodka, lamented and released curses against Naruto. Another significant change was that Lafay was not a Pendragon, because Nuriel explained the whole situation to Lord and Lady Pendragon, the parents of both brothers, who chose that the mage was banished from her family and would also be called Morgana, who had completely destroyed the mage. She no longer had a family. At the same time that releases the corruption scandal of the Cow University, making the Japanese government and the education committee to witch hunt teachers and students for different crimes, as a consequence that the university is closed, and the same with the Cow Academy, which brought several problems of student suicides and veto of young promise in sports habit. The most famous case was Cadis was thrown from a tall building, making the young woman's family cry for her loss. Murayama put aside his passion for kendo because she was suffered attempted rape during his vacation in Mexico, and where coincidentally, he is saved by someone who had beaten him in high school. Since then he married in the same country without revealing the name. But those involved in the supernatural, Kiba was sentenced to prison since Ursaches and Serafel blamed the former Gremory Knight. The grey-eyed blonde had hoped that his best friend Naruto would save him, but he brought him a harsh reality. The Uzumaki had left him to his fate and testified against him. Kiba no longer had anyone and understood what Issei felt in that dimensional movie theater. He was taken to a high-risk prison where he became everyone's bitch. There were only 2 days left for the wedding. The alliance and the new leaders received the news that the infernal alliance of the underworld gods were completely massacred by someone unknown. Hades' body and his territory had completely ceased to exist. That had caused immense fear and panic in the other mythology, that the Greek faction no longer exists. While at the Haidu residence, Issei's former father was alone when someone comes knocking on the door. Asia opens the door. On the street, there was an old woman dressed in traditional Japanese attire. The former looked cautiously at the older woman, who had a serious expression. "Can I help you?" the blonde asked the older woman. "Where is Goro Haidu?" the woman demanded. "Ella, she's inside with Myoka-san," Asia answered. The woman entered the residence. When the former was not going to ask the reason, which was ignored, she found that she was with Naruto, which the older woman did not like very much. The three looked towards the older woman. The aforementioned fell to the ground and found himself face to face with his mother, the matriarch of the Himura clan, Chiaki Himura. The older woman was not at all happy with the couple with Naruto and Asia because the others were upstairs. And at the same time in the Gremory castle, 2 women with the same red hair arrived. Rina's Gremory and Chisa's Gremory to see their beloved granddaughter. Both families were going to feel the karma for their actions. Chapter 4 Final Pair. The Himura clan was one of the oldest clans in all of Japan because it was ultra mega rich, and also those who could not be screwed so easily. Not even the Yakuza, the Russian mafia, the narco capo Mexico dared to cross paths with them. That also applies to the Yake's faction, and only one family of the New York Mafia had so much respect for the Himura clan that they swore a treaty not to attack, or else they would be a corpse for the Himura. Legend has it that they were helping in the time of Trump to win the 2016 elections because of Hillary Clinton's team destroying a place that was in the service of the Himura clan in New Mexico. On the other hand, before the founding of the Gremory clan, Runia's Gremory had formed the main secret army Crimson Tiger that participated in the biblical faction war and also in the Civil War. Where they were the most responsible for exterminating the house of the mass Beelzebub, where all his family and the territory was a fucking massacre that someone explained to the new Mayu who assumed power where Sursages was. Since then, listening to a delicate song about what happened in the massacre and several other curious people about mythology and clans wanted to find out about the existence of the Crimson Tiger Army, which currently has 75,000 members who work in an intangible way before the eyes of the Mao and the council, where the former founder Bale had died. Another thing is that the Gremory, being born a woman, had that right to be in the army, but if it was a man, Rias did not have that right to take the role. Zeodicus and Circiches, despite being redeeds, were not qualified because Rias distrusted the Bale clan a lot when his grandson married Venelana, although he did have respect for the brunette Bale. Then Graphia came where his great-grandson begged Rias to give her approval as the founder of the clan, and he gave it to her. Thus, given the prestige of the clan as his great-grandson was the Mao Lucifer, some time later the Gremory clan was going to have another redeed. It was a happiness for Rinia, and Chisis was Ria's Gremory. After the birth of Rias, both older redeeds loved their great-granddaughter very much when she was only 5'5", but everyone fucked you a few years later. Since Zeodicus on Ria's birthday had accepted the engagement with Razor Phoenix at the request of the former president of the council, there was the reason that Rias and Chisis abandoned the punishment, but before making something clear to Zeodicus, he no longer recognized as Gremory. Years passed where Rias sent people to watch Rias as her progress as a Gremory woman was going. She was extremely angry as the reports brought to her by her agents that Zeodicus and Circiches were spoiling him like a spoiled brat who instead learned on his own. And a clear example that Circiches helped indirectly to get a servant and also did not have adequate training with his power of destruction that he had inherited from Venelana, and more reports of this style when she was in Cow City as Gremory heiress, where one of those reports that her great-granddaughter reincarnated the current Red Emperor Issei, but now he was Himura. Rias had a certain friendship with Chiaki Himura, who talked about her former perverted grandson, where she also looked at him with good eyes for Rias, since she knew that boy was going to bring great things. And time proved her right, since the young former Red Emperor defeated Razor in their second confrontation, and thanks to that the future Mao changed completely. He also made time during Kakabiel's attack in the peace treaty, where he would be the pillar of the biblical facts and the others. However, she did not realize that a god called Seches was going to ruin everything for the Himura clan and the founder of the Gremory clan. Chiaki received a Christmas visit where Issei along with Hinata and adopted son arriving in Hokkaido, the current matriarch and uncle of Issei, heard everything his grandson said, whereas certain Naruto Uzumaki had taken everything, and even the former father of the aforementioned had thrown him out of the house. That was a crime too serious for the Himura and more for the memory of Juzo Haidu. Chiaki had a job to do when he went to Kao, Goru, and his wife Miki had the time counted by portal the surname Haidu. Rias and Chisis had also found out about that, since their own family that they had founded paid more attention to a piece of shit multiversal god and a fraud who according to them was more suitable to be Ria's husband. In addition to what exceeded the anger of both Gremory women, that blonde Uzumaki had stolen Ria's virginity and that was not going to allow Naruto to destroy the Gremory legacy no matter what. Present. Naruto and Asia were watching everyone as their parents looked very pale at the sight of that older woman who looked serious and cold. The whole large room was so awkwardly silent until Miki broke the silence. "Mother-in-law, what have you come for?" asked the eldest brunette. "Goru, tell your bitch to shut up," said Chiaki in an authoritative tone. "Hey, who do you think you are for silencing my Oka-san?" said Naruto annoyed towards the Matrix Himura. "Naruto, even if you did N''T provoke her, you do N''T know who you're messing with her," said Goru scared. "So it's you who replaced my dear grandson," said Chiaki infected the blonde with his gaze. "That's right, this pervert was a disgrace." He couldn't finish his sentence when he saw that icy expression gaze that freezes the soul. "The disgrace. You are the least indicated to tell me that, since you disgrace your own family and son, judging by what I see of you, you do not have the material to be a father," he said bluntly to Naruto. "What did you say?" said the blonde. "My grandson and his wife told me about you that your life was shit in the past at home, and now when you had the opportunity to be happy with the family you had to form, but your biggest dream was to be Hokage to have a family, and you had 2 children who are beautiful. It's a shame that someone like you doesn't deserve that," said the leader of the Himura clan. "You don't know anything about what happened to me," Naruto replied. "Really? Then explain to me why you didn't go to your youngest daughter's birthday and sent the clone." Chiaki countered the blonde's argument. Naruto didn't know how to answer that, he just kept quiet. "I see that you have no argument, your real parents are disappointed in you," said the older woman. "Well, since there is no obstacle about your question, dear daughter-in-law, I just came to verify what Issei said," said Chiaki. "Also, tell that blonde bitch and imposter to go somewhere else, this is a matter for the Himura clan." He coldly ordered both blondes who left from there. Left alone with the chestnut-haired and matrix-like Himura pair, Chiaki approaches Miki to give him a hard slap that sends him to the ground. The older woman did N''T stop there, she also applied it to her son to Ella, and then, taking Goru's shirt to Ella, she pulled her son towards her, so that his face to Ella was just a few centimeters from hers. Give me one good reason why I shouldn't kill you for what you've done to my grandson. Chiaki hissed. The fucking reason, Goru exclaimed his mother about him. Goru's eyes widened at the revelation that Issei had been in contact with his mother and also his brother. I only did what honor demanded. The older brown-haired boy moaned. Issei is of no use to the family because he brings shame to the family for his reputation as a pervert. I did what was necessary, mother said Goru. Chiaki gave his son another slap. Do you think that honor gives you the right to abandon your only son? The leader of the Himura clan shouted at both fathers. You think you can use honor as an excuse for your own weakness? You think you can use honor to trade your own blood for a fucking blonde stranger? Do you take me for an idiot? Dottie continued shouting while shedding tears. You abandoned your son, my grandson, you betrayed your entire family. Chiaki took several moments to take several breaths, but the anger was still evident. Issei revealed to me everything that happened in that dimensional cinema. His father is wallowing in his thoughts, taking what you did, he saved him from death at the hands of Rissavam. You should have done the right thing and taken care of my grandson's happiness instead. You did the opposite while wiping the tear from his eyes. Goru Haidu, you are not my son, in the name of the clan and the memory of your father, you do not deserve to have that surname that you have now, and from this moment on, we threw you out of the Hokkaido house of the Himura clan, you are no longer welcome, said Chiaki. Meanwhile in the Gremory castle, inside the castle the atmosphere was heavy, both Redeeds were not at all happy with Zeoticus, Venelana and Circiches who was being accompanied by their entourage, as Graphia was busy searching for Milikas who does not appear inside the castle. Hello mother and grandmother, Rias said Zeoticus in a fearful tone, because his mother has not spoken to him for a long time. Tissus didn't say anything, instead she approached him as she punched him in the face, sending him to the ground. The entourage wanted to intervene, but their king told them not to do anything. Don't call me mother, Zeoticus, said the eldest Blue Eye angrily towards her son. We have learned that my great-granddaughter Rias has a new engagement with that unknown Naruto, said Rias, who had her arm crossed. And we also want an answer, what happened to Issei Haidu and his engagement? Chisis demanded. Well, you see, mother, my son Circiches convinced us to annul the engagement because he saw with his own eyes Issei's arrogant and mega-perverted attitude, Zeoticus responded. Do you have proof to support what you say? Questioned the founder of the clan. Bray gave us proof of what happened in the movie theater, said Venelana. After seeing the test, I didn't hesitate much to break the engagement and give her to Naruto-kun, who turned out to be better for us, the current Gremory patriarch finished saying. Tissus and Rias was processing the information they had just heard from the couple. And you Circich agreed that his younger sister should have him, said Rias. Yes, he agreed to break the engagement, said the Mau confidently in his words. Both women looked at each other, not believing any of Circich's words, then Rias takes the words. I see that you are sure of what you say, then I want to hear my great-granddaughter's version, said the founder seriously. Besides everything, where is Rias? Chisis asked her daughter about her. Rias is looking at the wedding dresses with her harem sister, answered Zeoticus. Besides, it won't take her long to get to the castle, said the eldest brunette to her mother-in-law and Rias. Okay, we'll wait for you here, and you better not fool me, Zeoticus said the former Gremory matriarch who sat on the armchairs. He understood, said the older Redeed. Venelana had ordered the maid to bring some drinks for Rias and his mother-in-law, while Zeoticus and Circiches went to the hallway for a private word. Son, you better know what you're doing, said the Redeed to the Mau Lucifer. Don't worry father, I have everything under control, and Rias won't reveal the truth. He said very convinced. You don't know what your great-grandmother and grandmother are capable of, said Zeoticus. Because father said so. He said curiously. You'll see very soon. He said before returning to the room, leaving Circiches alone in thought. A few minutes later, Rias had arrived along with Seraphol and Sona with their peerage. The Gremory heiress opened her eyes upon seeing her grandmother and great-grandmother, whom she had not seen for years since her birthday, where she had her evil peace. The younger Redeed did not hesitate to go and hug Chisis and Rias, who gladly accepted it. The Citri sister was also watching the scene, however Circiches approached her Mau companion to leave, since it was now a family matter. The brunette understood the message, so Seraphol and her companion made a brief farewell to the founder of the Gremory clan and former matriarch. Oh my little one, you've grown up, you're quite a Gremory woman, said Rias, looking at the big breasts of his beloved great-granddaughter. Thanks, have you been there a while? Rias said with a smile. Yes, we came to see everyone. I already heard a rumor that she changed her fiancé, and as the founder of the clan, I want you to give me your version of the events. Rias said seriously. Rias looked at her father and older brother who were tense and nervous, then she had an evil smile form from Rias herself. Well, grandmother Chisis and founder Rias, I never actually accepted that commitment with Naruto Uzumaki because they forced and manipulated me, revealed the Gremory heiress, telling the truth. Chisis was releasing his magic power because he was angry, while Rias had an emotionless look looking at Sursages who was lying. What else? Asked Rias, who was extremely angry and also wanted to confirm something that Sursages was hiding from his own father. I supposed fiancé raped me for no reason, and the Mau Serafal also participated, and the harem's sister encouraged Naruto. He said in a broken voice that he wanted to cry remembering that dark moment. Zeodicus. You knew that, his mother shouted angrily. No, I knew nothing about it, said Zeodicus trying to defend himself, but his mother punched him in the face. I see that you have not learned anything, since that marriage with the third son of the Phoniques was approved, at least you have changed young, and now you are the Mau. Chisa said. I thought you weren't going to follow the old laws of the old demon, but you have proven otherwise over time. I should have educated myself better and prepared myself. Said her mother, who was about to cry. I'll ask you a question, if you want to answer truthfully. Said Rias to Zeodicus. What would your wife do if she were raped by Risavum? If you allowed it? The founder asked. I would never allow that. Answered the older Redeed. Then explain to me, why didn't you do anything against that fucking blonde? I demanded angrily. It was the pillar of the alliance, grandmother, said Zeodicus. Pillar? Rias said mockingly. This brat is not a catch, he is a fraud, since you have not won any battle against the Infernal Alliance, where he mysteriously fled to an extinct Greek pantheon, said the founder with sharp tongues. Which will only bring about the tarnishing of my legacy that has been formed over the centuries, and I will not allow that for anything, said Rias to those present. Irenia's Gremory, and he said while reciting. Mother, we avoided that, we did it for the good of the clan. Said Zeodicus desperately. I'm sorry, it's time I put that family in order, and I was too lenient in the past when you married the Baal, and your son formed a family with a member of the enemy. Said Chisis coldly. Chisis Gremory. Also do their part. As the founder of the Gremory clan, former Gremory matriarch. They said in unison. We don't know about Rias Gremory and Naruto Uzumaki's engagement. Grandma, I know I made a mistake and it will happen again. Said Sursages, trying to convince both red-haired women. Sursages, you better shut up, don't make things worse. Said his mother about him. By the laws of the Gremory clan, it is granted that this commitment is broken, and Naruto Uzumaki is considered a persona non grata of the clan, said Chisis and Rias. Rias is now free from this commitment. Said her grandmother with a smile. Thank you, Grandma. Said Rias, smiling back at her. There is still another punishment to be given to you, pointing at the three adults. Sursages, you are not a Gremory, but your actions have exposed me to the danger of your younger sister, which would be the punishment for this, but since I am being very generous with you and your wife and son, I want you to get out of here. Said Rias to the Mau. Also notify the president of the council and the Uzumaki that Rias cannot be his wife. Chisa said. I'll do it right away, said the Mau, lowering his head. Zeodicus and Venelana, you have failed as a father lately, letting that stranger do everything to win your youngest daughter. He only disappoints me as a father, and his punishment is that he resigns as patriarch of the Gremory clan. Said Rias. Understood. Said Venelana discouragedly. We will be in the castle, so today I will take the position of temporary matriarch until Rias takes the place. She has an objection. Said Chisis to her son. None. Said Zeodicus. 2 days later. Wedding. Time passed differently for the Gremory due to the arrival of Rias and Chisis. Sursages had learned that his son Milikas had been killed by some wild relatives far from Gremory territory, so Chisis allowed him to make a decent confinement for his great-grandson, since he was also a victim of the manipulation of god Seches. After that, Graphia was no longer the same as before. She always spent her time crying in Lucifer's castle, being comforted by Venelana, who was also affected. On the other hand, Zeodicus had fallen into alcohol and was despising himself for not having intervened. In addition to the underworld having found out that Rias will not marry the imposter fraud, that had different reactions. The Op-Ace Dragon fans celebrated that victory. The Uzumaki did not take it so well, and so he went to confront the founder to reactivate the engagement, but it went badly for Naruto, since some members of the Crimson Tiger army attacked Blonde. Naruto wanted to invoke his powers against him, however those powers stopped working in that fight where the Blonde fled. On the other hand, Naruto's harem was divided by that news, where some were complaining and questioning Rias, and others were defending Rias. That had surprised Arete that her former queen friend of her was giving her the reason that she should not marry her Naruto. Issei's former father was feeling the karma. Goru was fired from his job. It was not enough for the older brown-haired boy had an unexpected visit from his brother. Haruka Haidu, who had supported him when he married Miki, and the medical expenses of the 2 abortions that he suffered. Goru felt terrified that his younger brother had an unfriendly face. The aforementioned taking out some documents that Chiaki had ordered to be made about stripping the Haidu surname, Goru begged him to do that, and he was completely sorry, but that did not move Iruka. Iruka takes his older brother's arm to sign in another way. Goru tries to get away from the grip, but it was useless with the pen in hand. The younger brother Haidu Himura had locked the pen in Goru's hand while he screamed in pain, and there took advantage of a little blood that fell to the document. Now the person was an honorless Ronin of the Himura clan. Miki had become depressed after the meeting with her mother-in-law. She did not stop crying all night and saying I'm sorry to Issei. She was no longer able to do chores around the residence, so some of the girls put her in charge. But the alliance leaders, Circiches again received the second warning card for covering up the rape of his sister at the hands of his future brother-in-law, who had earned him more bad fame in the population of Lilith and other sectors that demanded his immediate resignation of him as Mao. But so much shit news, that didn't stop Naruto and his fiancee's wedding from taking place inside Lucifer Castle, where everyone was gathered, be it the press, the upper class, the new ruler of heaven, Razor and Hanzu, to ensure the safety of the event, but there was also going to be another surprise. There were Circiches watching Naruto, he was happy angry, and on the other hand there was Blonde's future wife who was excited, and others not so much since it was a punishment when the wedding was about to start and suddenly the whole place began to shake. "What's happening?" said Auden. "Here it is," said Mail as if nothing had happened and calmly. "Huyen?" asked Shiva. "The goddess who has come to give us our sentence," answered Gabriel without emotion. The tremor stopped shaking for a few minutes, and then I saw a mature woman with pink hair who was being accompanied by two special guardians of her territory. She was the goddess Chichigami of the X-World, the Monitor and Watcher. Great Red, Mail and Nuriel bowed to the goddess, the rest of the Unlimited did the same so as not to be disrespectful. Chichigami was watching everything and fixed his sights on her target. "Who are you, Naruto Uzumaki?" asked the pink-haired girl. The aforementioned was made to face the goddess of breasts. "It's me, do you have a problem?" Woman Naruto answered arrogantly, but it cost him that Mail hit the blonde. "Do not disrespect Chichigami-sama, mortal," said the Monitor while pointing his gun. "Put down your gun, Monitor, there's no need to lower yourself before him," said the guard. The Monitor lowered his gun in a bad manner. "You piece of shit, you have ideas what you're doing," said Chichigami. "No, I'm just doing my duty as a savior," said Naruto. "That god that brought him to that dimensional cinema has brought severe consequences that changed the history of that universe," he said seriously. "What consequences?" "He told me that he was going to defeat the Infernal Alliance and make peace with the rest," said the blonde. "This idiot Seches lied to you," said the pink-haired girl. "What do you mean? Tell me," Naruto demanded. "He is not in a position to order someone who can eliminate you from his existence, but if you want so much you know I will tell him," said Chichigami in a malicious tone. "The late king of Olympus, Hades, made a temporary alliance with a faction that is in the world from he began to those present." "What world do you come from, Chichigami-sama?" asked Frigg. Evie Edeld answered the goddess of breasts to the question of Auden's wife. "Wait a minute, are you that goddess who had contact with Issei or am I wrong?" Rias said, processing the information. "That's right, Rias Gremory, I sent a fairy to help in her situation with the god Loki, and since then she became a priority for our war with the Eevee," said Chichigami. "Who are Eevee?" Seraphil asked confused. "The Eevees are a species of mechanical life forms led by Malvazoa," the Monitor responded. "Risivam wishes to invade Evie Edeld after learning of her existence, as he set out to revive 666 to defeat Great Red, so that Risivam and his army could pass the dimensional gap to enter the X-World," the Watchman said seriously. "But now Risivam is dead, the Trihexa is sealed, and only the god Hades was left who took up what Risivam had left, although he was smarter to make a temporary alliance," said Chichigami. "Once the alliance was made, it was them who started attacking us," said Azazel. "I see that you understand everything, partly yes since your leader Malvazoa has slowed a part of his army to invade," said the serious guard. "That explains why Zeus fell so quickly, but we still have the question of why Naruto didn't disappear," Ajuka said. "He was taken to the special dimension where the Sage of Six Paths and his sons were, where he was stripped of his Biju along with the power of the Sage, and in addition a seal was made that Charka cannot use," said the Monitor. "It's true what you're saying, Brat," said Auden. "Yes, that old bastard took everything from me and my walking battery, but that doesn't matter, I still have all that power that Seches-sama gave me," said Naruto confidently. "Huff, ha 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 ha." Chichigami began to laugh, followed by Mail and Nuriel. Those present were disoriented by laughter. "I regret to inform you that Seches is no longer a multiversal god, which means that all the powers he gave himself were overthrown the moment he was sending Malabarge," said Chichigami. "Hey?" Naruto exclaimed, dismayed that all his power had disappeared. You don't listen well, now you no longer have that power that Seches gave you, which made you just an ordinary human with a loginess, he said with contempt. Besides, with your current power you are no match for Malvazoa, said the monitor. Now Malvazoa will arrive very soon to her homeworld. He informed Rubio, as well as Sakura and Sarada, who was shocked by the revelation. Now you have the situation that in both worlds, Issei was the key to defeating him, said the watchman seriously. But you chose to change for a blonde that you don't know. Complete a fucking confrontation. The worst. Banished the young man from your features. I have exclaimed in anger. Great Red will not be saved from her fate as Malvazoa either, said the monitor. I think you were everything. Come on, I don't want that here anymore, said Chichigami. So the three of you were a dimensional portal, leaving the entire room in deathly silence until Razor spoke. Very well, the whole wedding is cancelled, said the Mausmatius. Right, it's time to have a faction meeting immediately, Mail said. Since days it was supposed to be a romantic wedding, and it turned out to be the preparation for the arrival of a new threat from the evil gods of X. Sakura and Sarada were worried about their other harem sister in their homeworld, but what she didn't know was what decision her blonde husband was going to make. Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.